Chapter 10:14. Upon hearing Han Shuo's agreement, the god of space and time's wizened face revealed a faint smile. All of a sudden, the world he had created quieted down. A colorful tunnel appeared in the sky and stopped in front of Han Shuo's two avatars. Looking inside, Han Shuo discovered that there were rays of light shooting out from the tunnel. The chaotic energies of space collided with each other, as if they were about to tear something apart. An ancient and lonely aura gradually spread out from the tunnel. "Come with me. I'll take you somewhere." Suddenly, the wizened face of the god of space and time disappeared, and a hunched figure appeared in the colorful tunnel. The voice came from the figure whose back was facing Han Shuo. The two souls' divine souls moved and immediately sensed that the ancient and lonely aura was coming from the back of the figure that appeared in the passageway. After hesitating for a moment, Han Shuo let out a carefree smile and stepped into the strange tunnel. As soon as the two avatars entered the tunnel, the chaotic energies of space rushed over and twisted Han Shuo's body. Before Han Shuo could prepare himself, a blinding light burst out. The energy of space compressed into a point and sucked both of Han Shuo's bodies into it. In a flash, Han Shuo appeared above the dense white clouds. Before him was a stooped old man with a smile on his face. The old man looked at Han Shuo and softly said, "Thank you." Han Shuo immediately realized that this old man was the god of space and time. There was a power that made Han Shuo's heart palpitate. Having communicated with Nestet, Omphalos, and Gerardo, Han Shuo naturally knew that this was the unique power of quintessence. "You're welcome. If I can reach that realm one day, I'll lend you a hand," Han Shuo promised with a smile. The two avatars that had been forcibly separated were once again brought back together using the power of space. "This isn't the world you created, is it?" He did not sense any abnormalities in the energy of space but could sense the presence of elements. He immediately knew that he had walked out of the world he created. "Of course not." The god of space and time smiled and pointed to the front. "Look, what's that?" Amidst the dense fog, a majestic ancient city stood tall. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled around the ancient city, and a violent storm raged without end. Death, destruction, light, and various other energies collided with each other, forming layers of barriers that were hard to be seen by the naked eye, firmly protecting the ancient city. At a glance, the ancient city seemed to have a life of its own. It was constantly moving in the thick fog. Wherever it moved, the thunder, lightning, fierce winds, and heavenly flames would always follow it. The boundary formed by the collision of the various powers in this universe flickered with multicolored light, blooming with a bewitching and gorgeous beauty. "Sky City." Han Shuo took a deep breath and shouted. "That's right, Sky City." The god of space and time nodded, his old face solemn. "This is a castle that she created with her own hands. It's constantly moving and absorbing the various powers of the universe. When the Sky City moves, it destroys all matter that blocks its way. Since it has been dormant in there, 65 planes have been crushed by the Sky City." "Why would she do that?" Han Shuo was shocked. So many planes had actually been crushed by Sky City. What kind of power was this? She, who was heavily injured in there, could still use Sky City to destroy planes. Just how powerful was she? "We need the power of faith to control the divine spark. I'm sure Nestet and the others have already told you this. The power of faith comes from all the living beings in the planes. If all the low-level life forms in the planes disappear, we won't be able to continue receiving the power of faith. When that happens, the divine spark will break free from our control and return to Sky City." The god of space sighed softly. "Even when she's in Eternia, she's still the one holding the initiative. She's pressuring us step by step, making us feel like we're living in her shadow. Can't you stop her?" Han Shuo was stunned. Looking at the barrier formed by the various powers of the universe, he felt a little sorry for the 12 quintessence overgods. The enchantment protecting Sky City contains all the power of this universe. The power of the enchantment that collides with each other is indestructible. The power of the 12 of us cannot break through the enchantment with our godheads. We can only watch helplessly as it destroys one plane after another. The god of space and time shook his head with a bitter smile. All we can do is evacuate the living beings in those planes as soon as possible and preserve their lives before Sky City hits. However, there are many who refuse to leave and don't believe that their world will suddenly be destroyed. Even if we use the power of the temple to restrain them, there are still many who don't believe it. Some even doubt our faith and resist our restraints. In the end, they disappear along with the plane. Over the years, countless lives have been lost just like that. The power of faith we're getting is getting less and less. At this rate, even if she doesn't come out of Sky City, she'll still force us to our death. How vicious! Han Shaw exclaimed. He finally understood why the 12 quintessence overgods were so desperate, why they built shrines in all the major planes, and why they fought for the power of faith. You might not know this, but there's a powerful force at the core of every plane. When a plane is destroyed, that force will be released and absorbed by Sky City, allowing her to recover faster. Over the years, every time she destroys a plane, she recovers a portion of her power. She should have recovered a third of her power by now. The god of space took a deep breath and said, "So, she's ready to deal with us now that she's confident." "Why do you say that?" Han Shaw asked, puzzled. "Because Sky City is moving towards Elysium," the god of space shouted. Han Shaw's face paled at those words. Elysium was the foundation of the 12 quintessence overgods' existence and the place with the densest energy in the universe. If Elysium were to be destroyed by Sky City, what would happen to the 12 quintessence overgods if she were to absorb all the energy released? It's just as you think. The force on Elysium is more than all the planes she has destroyed over the years combined. Once Elysium is destroyed, she'll be able to recover a third of her power. When that happens, no one on this plane will be her match, the god of space said in despair. How much time do we have? Han Shaw frowned as he realized the gravity of the situation. 230 years. Given the speed at which Eternia is moving, it will reach Elysium in another 230 years. We must break the boundary within this period of time. We must make preparations in advance. The War of the Gods must also end within this period of time. Otherwise, no one will be able to escape from her grasp, the god of space said with difficulty. What a heavy topic. A ball of flame floated over. The flame twisted for a while, revealing a red-skinned man. His entire body seemed to be burning in flames. Endless fire elements lingered around his body, making him hotter than the sun. Charteris, you're here too, the god of space said coldly as he looked at the man who was burning like the sun. I thought you were hiding, Fernando. Haha, so you're not unconcerned about Sky City. Charteris, the god of fire, smiled brightly. He looked at Han Shaw and said passionately, "Oh, you're Han Shaw, aren't you? I've been wanting to meet you for a long time. I didn't think I'd meet you here. How do you feel, seeing Sky City getting closer and closer?" Charteris didn't stand on ceremony at all. As he spoke, he suddenly moved to Han Shaw's side and released a terrifying wave of heat. Han Shaw's body, which was made up of 2 avatars, couldn't withstand the heat. He felt as though he was sinking into a sea of fire. Han Shaw retreated a little and looked at Sky City that was constantly moving. He smiled and said, "What else can I do? You still need to be able to stop it." Charteris wore a mocking smile as he looked at Han Shaw, seemingly disappointed. He then turned to the god of space, Fernando, and frowned. "After so many years, you still can't do anything. If you can lure Sky City to another universe, maybe we won't have to be so passive anymore. If I had that power, I would have left this universe a long time ago. Why would I care about your lives?" Fernando didn't seem to like him and said sarcastically. A huge crystal drop of water suddenly appeared beside Han Shaw. Before Han Shaw could react, the crystal drop of water wrapped around Han Shaw. The power of water suddenly bound Han Shaw. No matter how hard Han Shaw struggled, he couldn't get out of the water drop. A beautiful woman walked out of the void with an ice-cold face. Her skin was sparkling and translucent, and there was a bone-chilling aura around her. She glanced at Han Shaw, who was struggling to break free from the water droplets, and said with a sullen face, "Isn't it a little too rash for us to place all our hopes on this person? With his power, it's impossible for him to break the enchantment of Sky City in 230 years. Manju, if you have a way, why don't you try to break the enchantment? If you have a way, I, Nestet, will listen to you in the future. A gloomy aura of death rippled, and Nestet, Gerardo, and Omphalos walked out of it, mocking the goddess of water. The goddess of water, Manju, frowned and glanced at Nestet. She snorted and took back the water drop that was imprisoning Han Shor. Chapter 10:15. As soon as the water droplet left his body, Han Shor immediately regained his mobility. He took a deep breath and looked at the goddess of water, Manju, with a sullen face. He did not immediately turn on her. When he fought against Omphalos in the Dominion of Darkness, Han Shor knew that his avatar, which had yet to fully fuse with his avatar, was no match for an overgod of quintessence. Moreover, Manju had appeared out of nowhere and imprisoned him in the water droplet. It was only natural that he could not break free. It could be seen that Manru did not like him. As soon as she came over, she used the divine power of water to imprison him. It was all in order to embarrass him and deliberately humiliate him. Han Shor knew that this was not the time to lose his temper. He made a mental note of Manju's actions today. He would deal with her after his main body was reborn in Pandemonium. The arrival of Manju, the god of water, Charteris, the god of fire, Nestet, Omphalos, and Gerardo was definitely not a coincidence. Han Shor noticed that the overgod of space, Fernando, was constantly emanating spatial energy, creating spatial tunnels of various colors in this misty space. It was obvious that the person who had summoned the overgods from various regions was none other than the overgod of space, Fernando. One after another, spatial tunnels appeared in the void. Shortly after, the goddess of destiny, Orseha, the god of light, Arstings, the goddess of life, Lena, the goddess of wind, Lancelot, the god of lightning, and Bergson, the god of earth, walked out of the spatial tunnels and gathered in this special region. At this moment, the goddess of destiny, Orseha, the god of light, Arstings, the goddess of life, Lena, the goddess of water, Manju, the goddess of wind, Charteris, the god of fire, Lancelot, the god of lightning, Bergson, the god of earth, Omphalos, the god of darkness, Nestet, the god of death, Gerardo, the god of destruction, and Fernando, the overgod of space, had gathered together. After arriving, the god of light, Arstings, smiled at Han Shor and nodded. Good, very good. You're on the opposite side after all. Han Shor knew what he was talking about. Back then, the god of light, Arstings, had used Gandalf's divine body to warn Han Shor not to touch Jar. He said that if Han Shor touched Jar, he would be making an enemy of him. Unfortunately, Han Shor still went his own way and killed Jar in Hexopolis. If not for Han Shor's divine seal appearing in time, Jar's divine soul wouldn't have been able to escape. Arstings, even if Han Shor didn't do anything to Jar, Jar would still be dead. The god of space, Fernando, frowned. Since Jar imprisoned McKinley for so many years, it's only natural that he would end up like this. Haha, Fernando, are you going to do it yourself? The god of light, Arstings, laughed. With your quintessence over god power, killing Jar would be a piece of cake. But don't you think it's beneath your dignity to do so? Who said I'd do it myself? Fernando raised his eyebrows. Car has been through a long journey of time and space, and has long since reached the overgod realm. If Han Shor doesn't kill Jar, Car will come looking for Jar when he returns to Illusory City. PH, you're not the only one who can reach the demi-overgod realm. Car was the lord of Illusory City. It was said that he had reached the late-stage high god realm many years ago. Then, he went on a journey of time and space for his cultivation. After disappearing for many years, he returned to Illusory City 5 years ago, and his strength was firmly at the demi-overgod realm. Oh, Car. I've heard of him. Haha, do you really think he can kill Jar? The god of light sneered. I've already reconstructed Jar's divine body. Since you're standing with Han Shor, it's obvious that you're planning to make an enemy out of me. Just wait and see, during the Battle of the Gods, how will Jar kill Car? Haha, don't say I didn't warn you, but Jar's strength has already recovered. I'm looking forward to it. Fernando smiled coldly and stopped talking. He turned his gaze to Orseha, the goddess of destiny, as though waiting for Orseha to speak. Fernando also said that we're pressed for time. Orseha's eyes scanned the crowd. When she saw that everyone was paying attention, she continued, we only have about 200 years left. My mirror of destiny is still lacking a lot of divine soul energy. I'm sure all of you have recently felt the powerful suction from Eternia. Without enough divine soul to replenish the mirror of destiny, our quintessence will fly uncontrollably into Eternia before she can escape from Eternia. Everyone's faces turned grave after hearing Orseha's words. Fernando, the god of light, and Astings stopped bickering. Orseha suddenly turned to Hanshoro and asked, Hanshoro, I know that your main body is still in Pandemonium, gathering a force from Elysium that we can't use. Can you improve in 200 years? Orseha, can he really break the boundary of Eternia? Lena interjected. After hearing Lena's words, everyone turned to look at Orseha and Hanshoro. It seemed that everyone was very concerned about this matter. Other than him, I can't think of anyone else in this universe who can help us. Orseha said solemnly, back then, that person could break through the barrier between the two universes and arrive here. Hanshoro can definitely break through the boundary of Eternia. This is our only way out. Even I don't have the confidence. Hanshoro spread out his hands and forced a smile. I can indeed improve in 200 years, but I'm not sure about that. However, I don't know if I can break through the boundary after that. You can do it. Orseha softly exclaimed. She was heavily injured when she constructed the boundary of Eternia. Therefore, the boundary isn't perfect. I have been secretly observing you ever since you came to Elysium. Every time you advance to a higher realm, your strength will skyrocket. If I'm not mistaken, you won't be any weaker than us in the next realm. That special power of yours doesn't belong to this universe. You will definitely be able to break through Eternia. Will we be a match for her? The goddess of wind murmured rather pessimistically. Some might completely disappear from this universe, but we definitely have a chance. Orseha looked at the solemn crowd and solemnly said, if we can't even threaten her together, I believe she would have left Eternia long ago. After hearing Orseha's words, everyone nodded in agreement. Let me introduce a new comrade to everyone. Orseha slightly creased her brows. She turned to Fernando and said, can I trouble you to bring Han Hao here as well? Chapter 1016. Fernando nodded. He didn't seem to use any spacetime energy, but another colorful spatial tunnel was formed, and the little skull, Han Hao, walked out of it with a stunned look. Father, why are you here? Han Hao looked at the crowd suspiciously, and then focused his gaze on Hanshoro. He walked over and stood beside Hanshoro. The quintessence over God's expressions changed when they saw Han Hao. They might have known that Little Skull had formed a new quintessence in the fringe, but they had never seen Little Skull in person. They were shocked when they saw Han Hao. They stared at Han Hao. Hanshoro didn't answer Little Skull. He looked at Orseha with displeasure and said, why did you bring Han Hao here? What does this have to do with him? Opening up Eternia was a very dangerous thing to do. Hanshoro just wanted to shoulder all the danger himself, so he didn't want Little Skull to take the risk with him. He has a new quintessence. Any quintessence over God has a duty to deal with her. Orseha was indifferent to Hanshoro's cold attitude. She said, I think if she really walks out of Eternia, Han Hao won't be able to escape death. It's for his own good that he's here. That's right. Any overgod with a quintessence should work together, the god of light agreed and said with a smile. Hanshoro snorted coldly. He didn't continue to express his opinion. He just kept quiet with a displeased expression. The war of the gods can't continue to drag on. Since we're all gathered here, I'll repeat the rules of the war again. Well, there are 2 more people this time. Orseha paused for a moment before she continued, we can only guide them on the big picture. We can't participate in the war of the gods ourselves. I'm sure you all understand that. Orseha looked at Hanshoro and his son and frowned. The quintessence over gods have their own rules. If we don't follow the rules in the war of the gods, it won't do anyone any good. Do the 2 of you have any questions? No problem. Hanshoro shrugged and said with a smile. Little Skull Han Hao didn't say a word. He only nodded reluctantly when Hanshoro answered. The war of the gods concerned the power of the quintessence overgods, and the quintessence overgods were far more powerful than those below them. If the quintessence overgods were to personally participate in the war, the disparity in power could be reversed. Their unparalleled power would throw the war of the gods into complete chaos. The beings of the many planes of the universe needed the guidance of the gods on Elysium. The quintessence overgods also needed their subordinates to fight for their own interests. If they were to act rashly and kill all of their opponent's subordinates, Elysium would become a dead zone. For example, if Nestet, Omphalos, and Gorado were to take action, they could kill all the gods from the dominions of light, life, and water. If the three overgods of light, life, and water retaliated, they could easily wipe out the gods from the dominions of darkness, death, and destruction. If they were allowed to do as they pleased, no one would benefit. The ultimate outcome would be the annihilation of all the gods on Elysium. The 12 overgods of quintessence would no longer be able to control the beings of the many planes of existence. Without the support of the power of faith, everyone would lose control of their quintessence and be done for. Seeing that Han Shoror and Han Hao had agreed, Orsehar pondered for a moment before she continued, "I don't care how the war is going to start and how it is going to start. But since everyone is here today, you should know that time is of the essence. I hope we can start the war as soon as possible." Orsehar, how did this kid form his quintessence? Our quintessence was bestowed upon us by her. Could it be that quintessence can form on its own? Manju asked as she looked at Han Hao with a strange look. At Manju's words, the other gods turned to look at Han Hao with puzzled faces. They had no idea how he formed his quintessence. Orsehar shook her head and said, "I'm not sure about that. The power of his quintessence is very special, and so is his life form. It's not something I can predict. Time is of the essence. I'll send you back." Fernando was puzzled to see them staring at Han Hao, while Han Shoror's face grew darker and darker. He took the initiative to open a dimensional passage, signaling the overgods to leave as soon as possible. The first to leave was the goddess of destiny, Orsehar, followed by the god of light and the goddess of life. After a while, the overgods disappeared from the dimensional passage, leaving only Nestet, Omphalos, Gorado, Han Shoror, and Han Hao. "I think we should talk," Nestet said to Fernando with a chuckle. "I'll instruct my subordinates to help you build a teleportation portal to connect the dominion of death, darkness, destruction, space, and the land of chaos. The 3 cities of the Space Dominion are already prepared. Once the teleportation portal is ready, no matter when you start fighting against the dominion of light, life, and water, they will be able to join you," Fernando said indifferently, shooting a glance at Nestet. "Haha, that's great. With that advantage, we can advance and retreat as we please." Nestet nodded with a smile. Then he raised an eyebrow and said, "But we don't plan to attack the god of light right away. Then which side are you going to attack?" Han Shoror asked curiously. "The dominion of destiny." Garado's face turned cold. He sneered, "Hasn't she been watching us kill each other all these years, making us fight each other endlessly? Hehe, this time, she said that the dominion of destiny can't avoid it. Since that's the case, let's give her a taste of what it's like." Han Shoror's heart skipped a beat. He immediately looked at Nestet, Omphalos, and Gorado in astonishment. Even Fernando and Han Hao's eyes were flickering. Under the watchful eyes of Han Shoror, Han Hao, and Fernando, Nestet, Omphalos, and Gorado nodded in unison, indicating that they weren't joking. "Very well. I was going to suggest attacking the dominion of destiny first." Fernando took a deep breath. His empty eyes seemed to have regained some vigor. After so many wars of the gods on Elysium, Orsehar's dominion of destiny is the only one that hasn't been affected. No one knows how much power the dominion of destiny has accumulated over the years. Why is it that her dominion of destiny can avoid every war of the gods? Now that there's an opportunity, she has to pay the price. Han Shoror was stunned. He didn't expect that Fernando would have the same idea. It seemed that the goddess of destiny's protection of her dominion over the years had really dissatisfied the dominion of destiny. Nestet, Omphalos, and Gorado glanced at each other and suddenly chuckled. Nestet stopped laughing and said, It seems that we all have the same idea. In that case, let's discuss the details. Haha, Brian, oh, no, Han Shoror, we need the support of the fringe. Before we know it, the number of experts in the fringe has increased. There seemed to be no concept of time in this place, and the few of them didn't know how much time had passed. After finalizing the general plan, they left under Fernando's escort. Han Shoror stepped into the dimensional tunnel and landed in the sky above the fringe. Below him was the only city in the fringe, Hexopolis. Han How didn't come with him. Instead, he asked Fernando to send him and Gerardo to the Destruction Dominion. God hunters were a special kind of people who betrayed the quintessence over God. The quintessence over God couldn't obtain faith energy from them, but their existence was somewhat necessary. The quintessence over God didn't need them, but Han How did. Han Shoror wasn't in a hurry to return to Pandemonium. After his avatar landed in Hexopolis, he went to look for Salas and Wasis and had them prepare to receive the people from the Space Dominion. Ka arrived much faster than Han Shoror had expected. As soon as he stepped into Hexopolis and invited Salas and Wasis, Ka landed outside Hexopolis in a blinding flash of light. After introducing himself, he entered Hexopolis to find Salas and Wasis to discuss the construction of a spatial transportation matrix in the center of the city. Salas, the two of you work with Ka to build the spatial transportation matrix as soon as possible, Han Shoror instructed. Seeing that Ka had arrived so quickly, Han Shoror didn't say much. He smiled and gave some instructions to Salas before heading to Pandemonium. Another 10 years passed in the blink of an eye. During this period of time, the darkness, death, destruction, and fringe had many more spatial transportation matrices. After 10 years of consolidation, the dominions of darkness, death, destruction, and chaos were getting ready. Han Shoror, who was in Pandemonium, could use the super magical mirror to communicate with the gods of darkness, death, and destruction at any time. During this period, he, Nestet, Omphalos, Gerardo, and Fernando had finally gathered their forces and planned to attack the Dominion of Destiny in the near future. However, at this critical moment, Han Shoror received a message from Little Skull Han How through the super magical mirror, the Dominions of Light, Life, and Water had joined forces to attack the Dominion of Destiny before they could. For the past 10 years, the Dominions of Light, Water, and Life had been silently preparing to attack Han Shoror's Dominion. Who knew that they would make a sudden change at the very last moment? To everyone's surprise, they charged straight for the Dominion of Destiny. At the same time, the Dominions of Earth, Wind, Lightning, and Fire officially announced their alliance. They gathered their forces and attacked the Dominions of Light, Water, and Life while the experts of the Dominions of Light, Water, and Life were absent. The Battle of the Gods had officially begun with a strange beginning. Chapter 1017. In the Pandemonium, Han Shoror's main body was hiding deep underground, continuing to refine his body with mystical yin energy. Meanwhile, his avatar was gathering the experts of Tanai to discuss a countermeasure. The sudden attack on the Destiny Dominion by the Dominions of Light, Water, and Life was somewhat unexpected to Han Shoror. He needed to unite all the forces in the fringe as soon as possible in order to deal with any possible changes. Before Han Shoror could explain everything, the space above Tanai distorted strangely and the god of space, Fernando, walked out of it. Fernando swept his gaze across the Han family members gathered around Han Shoror and smiled at Han Shoror. He said, "I think we should take a look at the Destiny Dominion. Perhaps you don't know how the Mirror of Destiny operates. I'll take you there." Tanai, Bollands, Statholm, and the others widened their eyes in confusion when they saw Fernando. When Han Shoror explained Fernando's identity to them, the members of Tanai's Han family were shocked beyond words. One of the most powerful and mysterious existences on Elysium, the ancient god of space, had personally come to the Pandemonium and even invited Han Shoror to the Destiny Dominion. This was enough to show how high Han Shoror's status on Elysium was. "Can we wait for a while?" Han Shoror smiled after explaining Fernando's identity. Fernando nodded and smiled amiably, "No hurry. I'll wait for you." The Han family members were even more shocked by his words. Bollands, Statholm, and the others looked at Han Shoror with more than just astonishment. Their gazes were filled with sincere admiration. Phoebe, Emily, and the other women looked at Han Shoror with fervent gazes. They almost wanted to eat him alive. Han Shoror smiled and quickly briefed his subordinates. He didn't keep Fernando waiting for long and entered the tunnel with him. In the sky above the Dominion of Destiny, Han Shoror and Fernando, the overgod of space, were standing in the thick mist, looking down at the vast Dominion of Destiny. The densely packed dots below them looked like tiny ants. They were the gods of Elysium. Looking down from above, these gods were like ants. In the eyes of Han Shoror and Fernando, they were like ants that they could wipe out with a wave of their hands. Look, the mirror of fate is right above the divine temple. Those complicated and fine threads correspond to the traces of fate of those people below. Fernando explained to Han Shoror as he pointed at the mirror of destiny that ordinary gods would find difficult to detect. As expected, from Han Shoror and Fernando point of view, they discovered that there was an enormous mirror floating above the Shrine of Destiny. Within the mirror, there were hair-thin threads that were strung together. There were billions of them, and a small area of the threads was glowing brightly with intense life energy. The enormous mirror of destiny seemed to be illuminating more than half of the Dominion of Destiny. Strange energy undulations were transmitted from the Shrine of Destiny to the Mirror of Destiny, maintaining the movements of the Mirror of Destiny. Every time a god died, the corresponding thread of fate in the Mirror of Destiny would grow thicker and longer, causing the densely packed threads in the Mirror of Destiny to shrink and tighten, forming an enormous net that was getting tighter and tighter. A fist-sized ball of light continued to emit colorful rays of light, and it was moving slowly. The ball of light had a strong suction force, as if it wanted to pull the densely packed threads in the mirror into the ball of light. That moving ball of light corresponds to Eternia. Orsehar has deliberately marked it out. Look, as the Sky Castle approaches, the threads in that area are gently swaying under its power, affected by the Sky Castle. Fernando sighed softly and continued, however, its target isn't the ordinary gods on Elysium. Although it can affect those gods, ordinary gods can't sense it at all. Only the 12 of us can sense its gravitational force. Our quintessence is getting more and more out of control as the gravitational force increases. How does the Mirror of Destiny resist its gravitational force? Han Shoror furrowed his brows as he carefully observed the Mirror of Destiny. Look carefully. Every time a god dies, the Mirror of Destiny will release their divine soul energy. The corresponding threads will grow thicker and longer, and the net will tighten and become denser. Orsehar has the ability to move the fates of the dead gods and weave them into a giant net that can resist the gravitational force of Eternia. The bigger and denser the net is, the greater the effect it will have on our quintessence, Fernando patiently explained to Han Shoror as he pointed in the direction of the ball of light that represented Eternia. Han Shoror took a closer look at the ball of light and found that it was indeed the case. As the gods died one after another, the originally sparse net gradually tightened and released a peculiar energy that counteracted part of the gravitational force of Eternia. Han Shoror nodded and said, "I didn't know that the power of destiny could be used in such a way. No wonder everyone says that the power of destiny is the most mysterious of the 12 profound forces." After hesitating for a moment, Han Shoror suddenly asked, "Can this giant net weaved by Orsehar also increase her power?" Han Shoror couldn't be blamed for having such doubts. Since Orsehar could use the power of destiny to connect with other people's divine soul energy to construct such a wondrous giant net, it was sufficient to prove that the net was incomparably wondrous. Since it could even counteract the magical power of Eternia, could it have other uses? Fernando hesitated under Han Shoror's question. After a long silence, he shook his head with a strange expression and said, "I'm not sure about that, but I think it has other uses." Over the years, the power of destiny in Orsehar has become stronger and stronger. Nestet and the others suspect that the divine souls created by the Battle of the Gods not only helped us counteract the gravitational force of Eternia, but also helped Orsehar. They secretly guessed that Orsehar must be hiding something from us, but we all need the giant net to counteract the gravitational force of Eternia. Therefore, even if they had such doubts, none of them could ask her face to face. They could only bury their doubts in their hearts. Hearing Fernando's words, Han Shoror's heart thumped and he nodded inwardly. He guessed that the other 11 quintessence over gods probably had some grudges. However, they all needed to rely on Orseha's giant net to restrain the gravitational force of Eternia. In this regard, they could be considered to be asking Orseha for help. Therefore, even if they had doubts and dissatisfaction in their hearts, they dared not mention it to Orseha. I think that the reason why the god of light, Arstings, is the first to target the dominion of destiny must be because of this. Haha, Nestet and the others have probably been dissatisfied for a long time. After all, the dominion of destiny has never participated in the battle of the gods. It seems that Orseha has reaped all the benefits. This time, since Orseha has taken the initiative to say that the dominion of destiny can't avoid it, they have seized the opportunity and have a good excuse to vent their dissatisfaction. Fernando laughed gloatingly. From the looks of it, he must have accumulated a lot of dissatisfaction in his heart. After hesitating for a moment, Hanshuro guessed, I think the divine soul this time needs to be filled by a god of destiny. Otherwise, Orseha wouldn't let her subordinates sacrifice themselves. Who knows? Fernando smiled and said, but this time, if Orseha continues to look on coldly from the sidelines like before, I believe that Arstings, Nestet, and the others will be cursing and swearing. After so many years, due to the losses suffered in the War of the Gods, their subordinates have never matured. There are only a few pseudo-overgod experts among them. How powerful! The dominion of destiny is indeed formidable to be able to withstand the combined forces of the dominions of light, life, and water. Hanshuro exclaimed as he squinted his eyes and looked at the ant-like crowd below. It was no wonder that Hanshuro was shocked. It turned out that the dominion of destiny had dispatched 7 old women holding star compasses. The 7 old women were peak late-stage high gods. But when the 7 of them used the star compasses to form the 7 star positions, they attracted the light of the stars from outer space to descend upon them. In an instant, the gods from the dominions of light, water, and life were slaughtered in droves. The power of destiny affects the orbits of the stars in the universe. Those 7 old women have followed Orseha for many years. Even if they can never reach the realm of a pseudo-overgod, with the help of the star compasses, they are no weaker than an average pseudo-overgod. When the 7 of them join forces, even we, quintessence overgods, would have a hard time dealing with them. Fernando let out a cold groan and said, Orseha sure has a good plan. She has so much power but never revealed it. Everyone thinks that the dominion of the god of light is the strongest force on the continent. This time, Orseha has given Arstings a tight slap in the face. For a long time, outsiders thought that the dominion of the god of light was the strongest force. Back in the day, the 3 keepers of light had been waging war all over the world, forcing the other dominions to avoid them. For a time, the 3 keepers of light became synonymous with the strongest force below the quintessence overgods. However, even when the 3 keepers of light were in the limelight, they had never gone to the dominion of destiny to show off their might. Everyone thought that the 3 keepers of light were restrained by the god of light, Arstings, and did not go to the dominion of destiny for the sake of the goddess of destiny. Now, it seemed that this was not the case. It seemed that Arstings already knew how powerful the dominion of destiny was. If the 3 keepers of light had come to the dominion of destiny to stir up trouble, it was hard to say if the 7 old women with the star compasses would have been able to walk out of the dominion of destiny alive. Hanshuro was shocked by the power of the dominion of destiny. As he watched the 7 star compasses move out and the gods' souls disappear one by one, he suddenly had an idea. The cauldron of myriad demon could also absorb the power of souls. Could he use the cauldron of myriad demon to get a share from the mirror of destiny? Chapter 1018. Hanshuro found it hard to stand still. Ever since the demon generals collected by the cauldron of myriad demon transformed into his 13 avatars, the cauldron of myriad demon had run out of demon generals to use. If the cauldron of myriad demon wanted to maximize its power, the quantity and quality of demon generals played a crucial role. As the gods below perished, the threads of the mirror of destiny grew denser and tighter. Hanshuro was itching to snatch the divine souls from the goddess of destiny. However, the threads of the mirror of destiny corresponded to the threads of destiny and formed a giant net that could resist Eternia. If he used the cauldron of myriad demon to collect some of the divine souls, He might be able to reduce the power of the giant net and increase the suction force of Eternia on the quintessence, affecting all 12 quintessence overgods. If that happened, Han-Shoror would become everyone's target. All of the quintessence overgods would glare at him, and some might even attack him. It was for this reason that Han-Shoror did not say anything to Fernando, the overgod of space. He did not dare to make a move. Although he had all sorts of misgivings, he couldn't help but feel a little uncontrollable when the thought arose. The divine souls down there were so many of them that he was fatally tempted. He really wanted to snatch a portion of those divine souls from the goddess of destiny for his own use. Han-Shoror's mind raced as he suddenly hardened his heart and thought of an excuse to attack. At that moment, a jet of black light flew out from the depths of the pandemonium and shot toward the Dominion of Destiny like a bolt of lightning. The fringe was not far from the Dominion of Destiny. The cauldron of Myriad Demon accelerated to its maximum speed and arrived at the center of the battlefield in no time at all. The cauldron of Myriad Demon concealed its energy and cautiously roamed the battlefield, quietly absorbing the divine souls that had just perished. In no time at all, the cauldron of Myriad Demon had collected more than 100 divine souls. Secretly delighted, Han-Shoror chatted with the overgod of space and Fernando while watching the faint jet of black light and the cauldron of Myriad Demon's divine souls. The power of those 7 old women is a bit too terrifying. At this rate, the dominions of light, water, and life wouldn't be able to do much damage to the Dominion of Destiny. Look, those who have died are the people from the 3 divine dominions. The Destiny Dominion hasn't suffered many losses. Looking down, Han-Shoror talked to Fernando so that he wouldn't notice what he had done. Not necessarily. Fernando smiled. There's no way Arstings doesn't know how strong the Destiny Dominion is. If he dares to send his subordinates to cause trouble in the Destiny Dominion, he must have some other tricks up his sleeves. Otherwise, Arstings wouldn't do something so uncertain. Besides, it's not just the Dominion of God of Light this time. The Dominion of Water and the Dominion of Life aren't easy to deal with either. If the 3 dominions join forces against the Dominion of Destiny, they won't be at a disadvantage. As if to cater to the God of Space's words, the situation below suddenly changed as soon as he finished speaking. A few pseudo-overgods suddenly appeared behind the dominions of light, water, and life. They seemed to have been discussing how to deal with the 7 old crones. Now, they immediately pounced on the old crones. One of them was Jar, one of the guardians of light from the God of Light. He had been reborn under the power of the God of Light. He was still wearing the holy golden armor and looked majestic. Apart from Jar, the God of War from the God of Light, there were also pseudo-overgods from the dominions of water and life. The pseudo-overgod from the water dominion was a beautiful woman. She twisted her body into the battlefield as if she had no bones. She didn't seem to attack, but a pool of water suddenly appeared beside the 7 old crones and drowned them all. Another man who cultivated in the force of life praised the goddess of life loudly. The force of life rippled across the battlefield, and all the experts from the dominions of light, water, and life who were injured but not dead were instantly revived. They had regained their peak combat strength. The 3 pseudo-overgods weren't the only ones who joined the battle. There were also 2 pseudo-overgod experts who surrounded the 7 old crones from the left and right. They blocked the power of the stars from outer space and closed in on the 7 old crones. Every time the 7 old crones took a step back, many gods from the Dominion of Destiny would be killed. They no longer had an absolute advantage. After all the pseudo-overgods from the dominions of light, life, and water joined the battle, the Dominion of Destiny's defense was gradually showing signs of collapsing. As a result, the 2 sides were evenly matched. The dominions of light, life, and water even seemed to have the upper hand. Han-Shoror was in a very good mood as he watched the battle unfold. He couldn't wait for the blood to flow like a river. The gods who were engaged in battle did not notice a faint black light floating above the battlefield. It was gently hovering between the 2 sides and sucking the divine souls into the cauldron of Myriad Demon. Another 300 divine souls were sucked into the cauldron of Myriad Demon without them noticing. The cauldron of Myriad Demon became even more active after obtaining the energy of the divine souls. Gradually, It stopped hiding and became more ferocious and greedy when it absorbed the divine souls. Wherever the black light passed, the divine souls that had yet to dissipate would be sucked into the cauldron of myriad demon. Damn it, I'll be discovered sooner or later. Han Shoror cursed in his mind when he saw that the cauldron spirit was getting more and more arrogant. He tried to calm it down a little. It was at this moment that a strange noise sounded from the Shrine of Destiny. The mirror of destiny hovering above the shrine flashed and the image of the cauldron of myriad demon appeared. Han Shoror knew that the goddess of destiny must have discovered his little trick. The two of you, please come to the Shrine of Destiny. An intense soul fluctuation came from the shrine below. It was obvious that the goddess of destiny had spoken. Fernando was still unaware of the situation. He creased his brows and took the lead to land in the Shrine of Destiny. Han Shoror hesitated for a moment before he braced himself and followed Fernando into the Shrine of Destiny. Orseha, why did you ask me to come down? Fernando was still somewhat displeased. He said, can't we watch from above while you are fighting? This doesn't violate our agreement, does it? Fernando looked at Orseha in the Shrine of Destiny. The floor of the Shrine of Destiny was made of some unknown material. It looked like a miniature Milky Way with many dazzling stars twinkling and moving about. Standing on the Shrine of Destiny, Han Shoror felt as though he was standing in the vast starry sky. Orseha didn't answer Fernando. Her bright and deep eyes gazed calmly at Han Shoror. She frowned and softly said, Han Shoror, are you trying to make trouble for me? Fernando was a little confused. He looked at Han Shoror strangely and asked, what's going on? See for yourself. Orseha stretched out her hand and shot out a beam of light. On a slightly lower mirror, the cauldron of myriad demon appeared. The cauldron of myriad demon's little trick of collecting souls was clearly displayed on the mirror. Han Shoror couldn't deny it even if he wanted to. Han Shoror was a little embarrassed that his little trick had been discovered. He smiled sheepishly and said, there's so much soul energy. I think it won't affect you if I collect some. Your mirror of destiny can absorb soul energy, and so can my demonic artifact. You're a big fish, and I'm just getting some soup. My demonic artifact will become even stronger after collecting those souls. It'll also help me improve my strength and allow me to reach the realm you want me to sooner. I thought you wouldn't mind. Han Shoror, this doesn't seem like a good idea, does it? Fernando had a strange look on his face. He pondered for a moment and then said softly, those souls can make the mirror of destiny form a giant net to block the suction force of Eternia. It's for everyone's sake. It's the only way the quintessence over gods can relax a little. You may not have a quintessence, but Han Hao has one. Are you so selfish that you don't care about your own son's life? Orseha was clearly displeased. Do you think Han Hao's quintessence is the same as yours? Han Hao's quintessence isn't affected in the slightest. Han Shoror retorted in his mind. Of course, he wouldn't say that out loud. He forced a smile and said, I was just going to collect a little bit. That guy is a little out of control. I'll restrain him. Sorry about that. If your demonic artifact can counteract the influence of Eternia on the quintessence, I don't mind you taking a portion of the divine souls. But if your demonic artifact is temporarily ineffective against Eternia, I hope you will stop doing these little tricks. For the sake of all of us, please stop. The goddess of destiny said sternly as she looked deeply at Han Shoror. Idiot, why are you making such a big fuss? Hurry up and stop. This kind of thing can only be done discreetly. Aren't you making me look bad by being so brazen? Han Shoror contacted the cauldron spirit and said, they have spoken. If we can't counteract the suction force of Eternia, we can't divide the divine souls. Who said we can't? The cauldron spirit retorted, as long as I have enough divine soul energy in my body, with the energy of 10,000 divine souls as a primer, I can counteract part of the suction force of Eternia. If I can refine a demon general with the energy of 100,000 divine souls, I can completely counteract the suction force of Eternia. I wouldn't even need that so-called mirror of destiny. Are you sure? Han Shoror stared blankly for a moment before he continued to communicate with the cauldron spirit. Master, if I have 200,000 divine souls as a primer, I can directly shatter the defensive boundary of Eternia. The cauldron spirit transmitted arrogantly. Hanshaw, what do you mean by that? Orsehar shouted coldly when she saw that Hanshaw wasn't saying a word. No one had ever dared to ignore her. In her eyes, Hanshaw was communicating with the cauldron spirit. To Orsehar, Hanshaw's attitude made her very uncomfortable. I think I'm really going to get a piece of the action. Hanshaw took a deep breath. The corners of his mouth curved into a smirk as he said in a deadpan manner. Chapter 1019. Orsehar had been a little displeased before, but after hearing what Hanshaw had to say, Orsehar's expression turned ugly. She glared at Hanshaw with undisguised anger. Hanshaw, do you think it's child's play to collect divine souls with my mirror of destiny? Without the power of those divine souls, Eternia will become more and more attractive to the quintessence. We'll all be dead before you can break through Eternia's barrier. Fernando, the god of space, frowned. He also felt that Hanshaw was being a little ridiculous. However, Fernando still gave Hanshaw some face. Hanshaw, you're putting all the quintessence over gods in a difficult position by doing this. Even if I don't do anything about it, others will come after you. When that happens, not only will Arstings, the god of light, but even Nestet and Omphalos will be furious. Orsehar might have been a little selfish in collecting divine souls, but the effect of her actions was clear for all to see. Without Orsehar's mirror of destiny restraining Eternia, the 12 quintessence over gods would probably have collapsed a long time ago. Therefore, even though Arstings, Nestet, and the others were suspicious of and dissatisfied with Orsehar, they didn't dare to be careless when it came to the general situation. They obediently obeyed the goddess of destiny's orders, and only dared to make things difficult for Orsehar in the details. Orsehar and Fernando's reactions were just as Hanshaw had expected. Grinning, Hanshaw said in a relaxed manner, "Don't be angry. Let me finish." Seeing that Orsehar and Fernando had calmed down, Hanshaw continued, "Didn't you just say that as long as I can counteract Eternia's influence on the quintessence, you'll let me collect divine souls?" Orsehar was a little surprised. She looked at Hanshaw with a questioning gaze. "Are you saying that you can counteract Eternia's influence on the quintessence?" Fernando was also extremely astonished. He looked at Hanshaw with uncertainty and said, "Hanshaw, you can't say such things carelessly. If you're not careful, everyone will be finished. Do I look like the kind of person who would joke about something so important?" Hanshaw said seriously, "I can guarantee that as long as I collect enough divine souls, it can also counteract Eternia's influence on your quintessence. Not only that, if there are enough divine souls in it, opening Eternia will be a piece of cake." A strange glint flashed across Orsehar's eyes. She seemed to be very agitated. She looked deeply at Hanshaw. After a while, Orsehar spoke again. "Are you sure that if your demon artifact absorbs enough divine souls, it can open a hole in Eternia's defensive boundary?" Hanshaw nodded affirmatively. "I'm sure. As long as there are enough divine souls, opening Eternia is a matter of course." "Good," Orsehar said softly. Her towering chest heaved up and down. She said firmly, "I'll allow you to collect those divine souls. But if you can't break Eternia's boundary after collecting enough divine souls, you should know the consequences even if I don't do anything." Orsehar glanced at Fernando. Her voice became calm. "Fernando, this matter concerns all the quintessence over gods. Please gather everyone." Fernando nodded. He used the power of space to create a spatial tunnel out of thin air. He brought the other 10 quintessence over gods to the Shrine of Destiny. "What now?" Arstings smiled peacefully. It was as if he hadn't summoned the people outside to attack the Destiny Dominion. Nestet looked puzzled. He looked at Fernando, then at Hanshaw. "What's wrong? It seems like there's something important to discuss." Orsehar frowned when she saw Arstings, Manju, and Lena. She seemed displeased that the 3 of them were attacking the Destiny Dominion. She explained the situation to them when Nestet asked. Arstings, Manju, and Nestet were in an uproar. They looked at Hanshaw suspiciously. Manju was the most impolite. She said coldly, "Is this kid talking nonsense? This is no joke." If he's not confident, we'll all be in trouble with him. You're betting our future on this kid. Orseha, don't you think you're being too rash? Many had the same opinion as Manju. They didn't believe that Han-Shoror had the strength to do so, so they voiced their doubts. Nestor, Amorn, and Kratos furrowed their brows and didn't say anything. However, they seemed to feel that the situation was a little tricky and didn't speak up for Han-Shoror. I don't know if he's telling the truth, but he said that he can open Eternia if he gathers enough divine souls. We should take a gamble. After all, we don't have much time. As long as there's a chance, we can't let it go. Orseha's voice returned to indifference. She pondered for a moment, then said, just in case, I have an idea. I hope that the battle of the gods will be more intense this time. As long as we can double the number of divine souls, there shouldn't be a problem. Even if Han-Shoror's idea doesn't work, my Mirror of Destiny can still counteract Eternia's power. However, the 12 divine realms will suffer double the losses. What do you think? That's a good idea. Hihi, it's never wrong to be prepared for both sides. Nestet, who hadn't participated in the battle yet, immediately agreed to Orseha's suggestion. Omphalos, Gerardo, and the god of space and time, Fernando, also nodded, indicating that he accepted the suggestion. Only the life, water, and light over gods didn't say a word. They were the ones who had suffered the most in this battle. If they followed Orseha's suggestion, it would mean that the battle would be even more intense, which wasn't a good thing for them. What do you say, Orseha? Astings's smile faded as he looked at the goddess of destiny solemnly. I think we can give it a try. If he can really open Eternia, it'll be worth it to sacrifice more divine souls. At the very least, we can protect ourselves and kill her before she comes out of Eternia, Orseha said. Hihi, Astings, don't tell me you're afraid. Orseha isn't afraid, and you have the upper hand now. What are you worried about? Nestet mocked, gloating. All right, Astings shouted and laughed. Since you, Orseha, aren't afraid, why should I be? Manju, Lena, we can't lose in terms of momentum. As he spoke, Astings looked at Orseha from the corner of his eyes, no longer concealing the provocation in his eyes. Manju and Lena, the two goddesses, had always listened to Astings's opinion. Hearing him say that, they nodded in agreement. Kid, if you can't open Eternia when the time comes, I'll let you know what it means to be better off dead than alive. Manju gnashed her teeth and glared at Han-Shoror, the culprit, coldly threatening him. Shrugging his shoulders, Han-Shoror was unperturbed by the compliments and humiliation. He chuckled, don't worry, I won't let you down. Damn it, when my main body ascends to the demonic master realm, I'll be the first to kill you, Han-Shoror thought. In that case, let's continue the game. I think there's no need to hold back. Attacking with all your might is the wisest move. Once there are enough divine souls dead, I will immediately inform everyone. Until then, let's plunge Elysium into chaos, Orseha said in a businesslike manner. After finishing her speech, she coldly said, everyone, please return to where you came from. The spatial tunnel is still there, so I won't be seeing you out. Astings and the others turned around and left without saying a word. Nestet, Omphalos, and Gerardo gave Han-Shoror a meaningful glance, chuckled, and left. Just as Han-Shoror was about to leave with Fernando, the goddess of destiny, Orseha, suddenly said, I'll be the one collecting the divine souls in the Dominion of Destiny. There are battles going on in the dominions of light, life, and water. You go there. With the goddess of destiny here, there would naturally be conflicts if two people were to collect divine souls at the same time. Han-Shoror thought for a moment and felt that splitting up was indeed a good idea. He agreed and said, all right, I'll go to the Dominion of God of Light. Fernando, I'll have to trouble you to give me a ride. Don't mention it. Fernando smiled and extended his hand to open up another passageway. He waved at Han-Shoror and entered the passageway himself. Han-Shoror took one last look at Orseha and followed Fernando into the spatial tunnel. As soon as he stepped out, he found himself in the Thousand Peak mountain range outside the Dominion of God of Light. The Thousand Peak mountain range was a place one had to pass in order to enter the Dominion of God of Light. It was named the Thousand Peak Mountain Range because of its thousands of peaks of various sizes. At this moment, the Thousand Peak Mountain Range was filled with gods. Many experts from the dominions of wind, fire, lightning, and earth were pursuing the gods from the dominions of life, light, and water, forcing them to retreat into the dominion of God of Light. It was obvious that the alliance of the gods from the dominions of lightning, wind, fire, and earth had the upper hand. They were constantly killing the divine guards from the dominions of light, life, and water. Fortunately, the dominions of God of Light had made preparations in advance in the Thousand Peak Mountain Range. Countless energy towers were densely packed on top of the mountains. All of them were radiating holy light. With the help of the holy light, the dominions of wind, fire, lightning, and earth barely managed to hold off the pursuit of the allied forces of the dominions of wind, fire, lightning, and earth. The densely packed energy towers had consumed an immeasurable amount of energy crystals. The dominion of God of Light had spent a great deal of effort to set up the Thousand Peak Mountain Range, presumably to defend against the attacks of the dominions of death, destruction, and darkness. Little did they expect that the dominions of wind, fire, lightning, and earth would be one step ahead of them, forcing them to use the power of the Thousand Peak Mountain Range to defend. As soon as Han Shoror entered the Thousand Peak Mountain Range, he laughed wildly in excitement when he saw the divine souls that had yet to dissipate. He immediately released the cauldron of myriad demon to collect them. Chapter 10:20. To Han Shoror, the one thing he loved the most was the death of others. In Han Shoror's eyes, the divine souls drifting in the air were like elixirs. If there was anyone more excited than Han Shoror, it would undoubtedly be the cauldron of myriad demon. It transformed into a streak of black light and sped across the Thousand Peak Mountain Range at lightning speed. As Han Shoror's natal demonic artifact, the cauldron of myriad demon grew stronger and stronger as Han Shoror's state of mind changed. Although the one truly controlling the cauldron of myriad demon was Han Shoror's body hidden deep in the pandemonium, the sentient cauldron of myriad demon could still unleash terrifying power even without the help of Han Shoror's body. Wherever the cauldron of myriad demon passed, the divine souls that had yet to dissipate were sucked into it. After circling around the Thousand Peak Mountain Range, 600 divine souls were sucked into the cauldron of myriad demon. The goddess of destiny, or Seha, kept her promise. The divine souls of the dead gods were still roaming around the Thousand Peak Mountain Range. Naturally, they couldn't escape Han Shoror's clutches. The more intense the battle below, the more excited Han Shoror became. Soon, the gods from the dominions of life, light, and water could no longer hold on. The energy towers in the Thousand Peak Mountain Range were almost depleted. At this point, it was clearly not a good idea to continue fighting the experts from the dominions of fire, lightning, wind, and earth. Therefore, they retreated. This way, the battle was no longer as intense. Under the cover of the energy towers in the Thousand Peak Mountain Range, the gods from the dominions of life, water, and light only suffered a few casualties. Under the pursuit of the experts from the dominions of earth, they ran in an orderly manner towards the first city of the God of Light, Holy Light City. Han Shoror, Nestet sent a message saying that they are going to attack the dominion of earth. Tell your men to gather at the dominion of destruction. As Han Shoror watched the cauldron of myriad demon collect the divine souls with a smile, Fernando suddenly spoke. As the overgod of space and time, Fernando had personally created a dimensional mirror for Nestet, Omphalos, and Gurado. The three of them could use the dimensional mirror to contact him at any time, so Fernando knew their situation like the back of his hand. Oh! Han Shoror stared blankly for a moment, then smiled and said, Nestet and the others really know how to pick the right time. I just took a look. Among the experts from the wind, fire, thunder, and earth dominions, the earth dominions have the most people. Of the wind, fire, lightning, and earth dominions, the destruction dominions were the closest. I believe that the earth dominions are the weakest right now. Even if they receive the news, it would take a long time for the wind, fire, and lightning dominions to send divine guards to the earth dominions. That would be more than enough time for the earth dominions to suffer great losses. The wind, fire, lightning, and earth dominions have also picked the right time to attack the dominion of God of Light. Perhaps they thought that Nestet and the others would continue to watch from the sidelines. Haha, it seems that Nestet and the others are quite insidious. They are planning to cripple the Earth Dominions first, said Fernando with a faint smile. I will stay here and continue collecting divine souls. The divine guards in Pandemonium will immediately use the spatial matrix you created to rush to the Destruction Dominions to meet up with Nestet and Garado's men. What about you? Will you return to the Space Dominion? Asked Han Shaw. He very much agreed with Nestet and the others. Yes, I'll return to the Space Dominion and make some arrangements. Then, I'll go to the Destruction Dominions to look for Nestet and the others. If you need anything, just use the spatial mirror to communicate with me. I'll be there in an instant, said Fernando casually before he tore open a spatial rift and left. It's a blessing to have Fernando as an ally, thought Han Shaw. In a large-scale battle like this, having an ally who could create spatial matrices and communicate with him at any time was simply too convenient. Fernando's role in this kind of battle was very obvious. With his participation, the forces on Han Shaw's side could be gathered together at the fastest speed. The leaders could also communicate with each other without any hindrance and know each other's situation at any time. It was for this reason that Nestet and the others did not start a large-scale battle before they confirmed that Fernando was willing to join them. They only made small-scale probes with Arstings as men. In the few battles of the gods that had taken place on Elysium, Nestet, Omphalos, and Garado had lost more than they won. However, when Fernando participated in the battle, they had a huge advantage and won without any luck. Therefore, in the hearts of Nestet, Omphalos, and Garado, Fernando was invaluable. The three of them would always pay attention to Fernando's opinion on some key issues. Only when Fernando agreed would they take action. After Fernando left, Han Shaw hid in the Thousand-Peak mountain range with peace of mind and continued to use the Cauldron of Myriad Demon to collect the souls of those who died in battle. Even without his main body, the strength of Han Shaw's avatar was beyond the imagination of the participants. No one was able to detect Han Shaw's presence. On the other hand, Han Shaw's avatar in the depths of the Pandemonium was using his powerful consciousness to send messages to the experts of the Fringe, instructing Wasis, Salas, Statholm, Bollands, and the others to gather the fiends of the Fringe and return to the Destruction Dominion. Even though Han Shaw was deep underground, he could use his powerful consciousness to observe the situation in the Fringe. Return to the Destruction Dominion? Heavens, we won't be killed on the spot, will we? In the Fringe, a group of people looked shocked. They didn't know what to do after receiving the news. Yeah, we were expelled from the Destruction Dominion back then. We offended too many people in the Destruction Dominion. They said that we are never allowed to step into the Destruction Dominion, or they will kill us. If we return to the Destruction Dominion now, won't we be killed on the spot? Another person said worriedly. The others chimed in with strange expressions on their faces. This group of people had come to the Fringe from the Destruction Dominion many years ago. Back in the Destruction Dominion, they became public enemies due to various reasons. They were expelled from the Destruction Dominion by the city lords, divine guards, and large family clans. They were not allowed to step into the Destruction Dominion. After coming to the Fringe, they had finally settled down. But now, they were suddenly told that they had to go to the Destruction Dominion. They were dumbfounded. Back then, when they were expelled from the Fringe, they had already made up their minds to never return to the Destruction Dominion. They were originally from the Destruction Dominion and they might have some relatives there. Although they wished to return, they had no choice but to leave their homes in the face of great danger. For many years, they didn't dare to step into the Destruction Dominion. What's all this noise about? A loud roar sounded from afar. A bolt of lightning flashed across the sky. Salas's majestic figure landed beside them. He glanced at the cowering people and shouted, "What are you afraid of at a time like this? Lord Salas, it's not that we don't dare to return to the Destruction Dominion, but we are worried that we will bring trouble to everyone. After all, our reputation in the Destruction Dominion was too bad. Once we return, we will be immediately attacked by them. What do you think? Should we stay?" suggested the leader of the group after hesitating for a moment. Salas only realized the sensitivity of their identities after hearing those words. He bunched his brows and wanted to ask for Han Shoror's opinion. But before he could take out the spatial mirror to contact Han Shoror, a strand of his consciousness entered his divine soul. Don't worry, let them go. Gerardo has already given the order. No one will dare to touch them. As long as you are from the Hexopolis, even if you were expelled from the dominions of death, darkness, and destruction, you can return to them. I will take responsibility for any problems that arise. Salas immediately put on a smile. He glanced at the trembling people and proudly said, that person from the Pandemonium said that as long as you are from the death, darkness, and destruction dominions, you can go there without any problem. After a short pause, Salas continued, this is the result of his communication with the quintessence over gods from the three dominions. As soon as those words were spoken, the fiends from the death, darkness, and destruction dominions all boiled over. Their faces were flushed with excitement, as though they were bleeding. They hugged each other and danced with joy on the streets of the Hexopolis. These demon gods from the death, darkness, and destruction dominions were all natives of the three dominions. They might still have friends and family in the three dominions, but due to various reasons, they could never return to the death, darkness, and destruction dominions. Only they knew how painful it was for them to go through such an unforeseen experience. They had never thought that they would be able to return to the three dominions. When they suddenly heard Han Shoror's promise, their excitement was unimaginable. They laughed maniacally and loudly praised Han Shoror, praising Han Shoror to the heavens. All right, all of you damned fellows, shut up. Line up and enter the spatial magic array obediently, shouted Salas. A rare smile appeared on his face. How could Salas not want to return to the Dominion of Lightning? Salas used to be a mighty figure in the Dominion of Lightning. Even now, there were still people he couldn't let go of. Even though he had the strength of a demi-over god, he only dared to sneak back to the Dominion of Lightning, fearing that he would be discovered and attacked by the divine guards of the Dominion of Lightning. He was afraid that the quintessence over God would kill him. After today's events, Salas seemed to see the hope of openly returning to the Dominion of Lightning. Not only that, the next time he returned to the Dominion of Lightning, he would not have to hide his identity and attack his former enemies. He wouldn't have to worry about the quintessence over God killing him. At the thought of this, even Salas could not control the excitement in his heart. Therefore, he could completely understand the expressions of these fellows. Chapter 1021. Han Shoror didn't know about Salas's past, nor did he know what was going through Salas's mind at the moment. However, after scanning the area with his divine sense, he could tell how excited the gods were from their expressions. He didn't say much as he was at the bottom of the ninth realm mystical yin harvester. After giving his orders, he continued to refine his body with the mystical yin aura. To Han Shoror, the battle of the gods was important, but the most important thing was to unleash his full power. The barrier of Eternia would break one day, and when that happened, his value would come to an end. The quintessence over gods like the goddess of destiny, the god of light, and the water goddess Manju tolerated all of his requests, but once he lost his value, they would definitely kill him. From what Nestet, Omphalos, and Gerardo had said, Han Shoror could vaguely guess what the quintessence over gods were planning. He knew that once the barrier of Eternia was broken, they would attack him before he could even enter Eternia. To them, the threat of the demon lord Gu Tianxia's successor was no less than the threat of the All-Mother. Although according to the agreement, Nestet, Omphalos, and Gerardo had said that they would help him when the time came, the agreement was the most unreliable thing. Whether or not those treacherous fellows could be trusted was still a question. Naturally, Han Shoror wouldn't bet his life on them. Therefore, the only thing Han Shoror could do was to do his best to improve his strength, no matter the cost or the means. This was also why Han Shoror would rather risk offending all the quintessence over gods to get a share of the divine soul from the goddess of destiny, or Seha. Streams of electric light that were hard to be seen by naked eyes merged into Han Shoror's devil body, pulsating ceaselessly on Han Shoror's skin, flesh, pores, bones, internal organs, and even his brain. Han Shoror's body was like a bottomless black hole, sucking in all the yin energy. The enormous amount of mystical yin energy came from the energy that had been gathered on Elysium for countless years. With the help of the ninth realm mystical yin harvester, Han Shoror could gather the mystical yin energy to the greatest extent possible. In 200 years, the ninth realm mystical yin harvester would be able to absorb all the mystical yin energy on Elysium. As the mysterious yin qi entered his body, Han Shoror calmed himself down and became silent again, as if he had been petrified. His main body never left the pandemonium, while Han Shoror's avatar roamed around the dominions of light, life, and water. Whenever a battle broke out, Han Shoror's avatar would appear and the cauldron of myriad demon would take the opportunity to absorb the souls of the dead. Time passed quickly. The battles on Elysium grew fiercer and fiercer. Han Shoror enjoyed it, using the cauldron of myriad demon to roam around the dominions of destiny. The dominions of light, life, and water had no choice but to withdraw their attacks on the dominion of destiny. The experts from the god of light, led by Jar, hastily returned before the dominion of destiny was destroyed. Jar and the others didn't have any spatial matrices they could use, so they were obviously at a disadvantage. By the time they returned to the god of light had suffered heavy losses. The experts from the dominions of darkness, death, destruction, and fringe, led by Yarus, Bolans, and the others, went on a killing spree in the dominion of Earth. They destroyed several cities in the dominion of Earth and headed straight for the central shrine of the dominion of Earth. Little Skull's God Hunter subordinates didn't officially participate in the battle due to their sensitive identities, but they did their best to beat the enemy when they were down. Little Skull's God Hunter subordinates were like fish in water, taking advantage of the chaos in the dominion of Earth. When the experts from the dominions of wind, fire, lightning, and earth saw that Jar and the others had returned and that the dominion of Earth had been slaughtered by Yarus, Bolans, and the others, they had no choice but to temporarily abandon their attacks on the god of light. They ordered the experts from the dominions of wind, fire, and lightning to rush back to the dominion of Earth while retreating from the dominions of god of light. In this battle that engulfed the entire Elysium, there was one faction that stood out like a sore thumb: the Han family demon guard. The Han family demon guards who came out from the 8 Desolation and Torment formation numbered only 1,000 or so. But it was these demon guards that had performed miraculously in the battle. The 1,000 demon guards from the Han family were like an incomparably sharp blade that pierced straight into the heart of the dominion of Earth. Any divine guard from the dominion of Earth who ran into the 1,000 demon guards from the Han family would be utterly annihilated. Even though there were only 1,000 demon guards, they were able to cooperate with each other with incredible rapport. With the help of all kinds of small-scale demonic formations, the 1,000 demon guards from the Han family were able to maximize their group strength. It was precisely because of the existence of the 1,000 demon guards from the Han family that Yarus and the others were able to rampage through the dominion of Earth as though there was no one else around. In no time at all, the reputation of the Han family demon guards spread across the entire Elysium. All the divine guards in the battlefield knew of this army that was as sharp as a butcher's knife. The experts from the dominions of wind, fire, and lightning were all frightened out of their wits. They hastily gathered their forces and secretly sent people to observe the 1,000 demon guards from the Han family, hoping to find a way to resolve the situation in the upcoming battle. Because of the 1,000 demon guards from the Han family, all the divine guards on Elysium realized the importance of teamwork. They started putting in effort in this aspect, hoping to shorten the gap between them and the Han family demon guards. The war was still ongoing. More than 10,000 gods had died on Elysium. About 7,000 divine souls had been collected by Orsehar. Although Han Shoror had Fernando's help, he had only managed to collect about 3,000 divine souls. But even with only 3,000 divine souls, Han Shoror could sense that the cauldron of myriad demons' power was growing stronger. After more than half of the divine souls were refined into demon generals, the connection between Han Shoror's body and the cauldron of myriad demon could no longer be broken on Elysium. Although Han Shoror's body was deep beneath the pandemonium, through the connection between him and the cauldron of myriad demon, he knew the situation on Elysium like the back of his hand. With a single thought, the cauldron of myriad demon would respond accordingly and collect large amounts of divine souls. At this point, the souls of Han Shoror's avatars were no longer of much use. The avatars that were formed from the energies of this world were still unable to fuse completely. Although the two souls came from the demon generals inside the cauldron of myriad demon, they could not control the cauldron with ease. They still needed Han Shuor's body to command them. One day, the idle Han Shuor's avatar returned to the pandemonium. Just as he landed, Rose suddenly came up to him. She looked at Han Shuor's avatar and said, "Brian, I have something to tell you." Chapter 10:22. Han Shuor felt his scalp go numb. With a bitter face, he followed Rose to a protruding hill in the pandemonium. This hill was one of the bases of the ninth realm mystical Yin Harvester. Usually, no one would come to this place due to its remote location. Landing on the small peak, Han Shuor couldn't help but smile wryly as he looked at the hesitant Rose with knitted brows. He truly didn't know what to say. After a long moment of silence, Rose turned her gaze to Han Shuor and said indifferently, "Brian, our master-slave contract hasn't been dissolved yet, right?" Han Shuor secretly heaved a sigh of relief. "So that's how it is. It can be dissolved at any time. Haha, why don't I dissolve it for you right now?" Han Shuor hastily said with a smile. "Okay," Rose nodded lightly. Tanai's main body, who was in the pandemonium, moved his consciousness and broke the soul bond that bound the two of them. The so-called soul contract was nothing to the current Han Shuor. The soul contract was actually an alternative form of the power of destiny. When they formed the soul contract, the goddess of destiny could obtain a portion of the power through the soul contract and use the mirror of destiny to twist their destinies. However, when Han Shuor became a demon lord, his destiny was no longer under the control of Orseha, the goddess of destiny. The reason why the soul contract between him and Rose was that Han Shuor had deliberately left it there. Therefore, Han Shuor moved his consciousness and the soul contract was dissolved. "So, we are equal now," murmured Rose. Then, she bravely looked at Han Shuor and said seriously, "I don't want to be your slave. I want to be like Emily, like Phoebe. Brian, you know what I mean." Han Shuor, who had just heaved a sigh of relief, was stunned when he heard Rose's words. He forced a smile and said awkwardly, "Rose, what are you talking about?" Given the strength of Han Shuor's consciousness and the existence of the soul contract, how could he not know Rose's feelings? "You know what I'm thinking. Don't try to pretend." Rose coldly groaned and glared at Han Shuor. She exposed him. "You have a soul link with me. You know what I'm thinking. Stop pretending." Han Shuor was dumbfounded. After a long silence, he shook his head and said with a bitter smile, "Why are you acting like this? You've been in pandemonium for so long. You should know that I don't have the time to accompany Emily and the others. I've been spending all my time on cultivation. Following me is akin to jumping into a sea of misery. Why bother? I don't care." Rose looked straight at Han Shuor and said word by word, "Even if it is the endless sea of bitterness, it is my choice." Rose took a deep breath. Her ample bosom heaved up and down as though she was afraid to accept the result. She lowered her head and said, "Just tell me if you can or can't." Back in the Darkness Dominion, it was Rose who had always been by his side. Whether it was in the City of Shadows or the battle at Hushvale City, it was Rose who stood by his side. After he arrived at the Fringe, it was also Rose who helped him recruit Romont, Zovich, and the others. She had been a great help to him. Han Shuor was a sentimental person. After spending so many years together, he had always lacked the willpower to refuse a woman. What could Han Shuor do when Rose looked him in the eye and demanded an answer? After thinking for a moment, Han Shuor put on a bitter smile and said, "There are so many of them. I don't mind adding you to the list. However, my time is dwindling and I won't have many chances to spend time with you. You are just asking for trouble." Rose, who had her head lowered, did not dare to look at Han Shuor. But when she heard Han Shuor's words, she suddenly raised her hand and looked at Han Shuor with glowing eyes. Sometimes, all she needed was an answer, not an everlasting companion. Han Shuor, like Emily, Rose, and the others, did not have the chance to enjoy the pleasures of having women in his arms. Although Tanai had a lot of women, none of them were willing to let Han Shuor, his avatar, touch them. Although it felt good to have a pure spirit, Han Shuor felt that something was missing. Even though Han Shuor was in the pandemonium, he He had to receive a lot of news from Nestet, Omphalos, and Gorado every day. Bolans, Sanguinar, and the others were never afraid to disturb him. They would report every step of the battle to him in detail through the spatial mirror. The allied forces led by the dominions of darkness, death, destruction, and chaos rampaged through the dominion of Earth, killing many gods in the dominion of Earth. When the allied forces of the dominions of wind, fire, lightning, and earth were forced to retreat from the dominion of God of Light, Han-Shoror had also moved the cauldron of myriad demon from the dominion of God of Light to the dominion of Earth. The battle in the dominion of destiny had temporarily calmed down. The goddess of destiny, Orsehar, had also turned her attention to the dominion of Earth, which was about to erupt. As such, it was inevitable that Han-Shoror and Orsehar would have to fight over the divine souls of the slain gods. Fortunately, the two of them were quite self-aware. Whenever they saw the other party collecting divine souls in a certain area, the other would immediately move to another location. Under the control of the two, the Mirror of Destiny and the Cauldron of Myriad Demon split up to collect the divine souls of the dominion of Earth. Finally, the elites of the dominions of wind, fire, lightning, and earth, who had ventured deep into the dominion of God of Light, joined forces with the gods originally stationed in the dominions of wind, fire, lightning, and marched into the dominion of Earth. The two powerful forces officially clashed. With the dominions of wind, fire, lightning, and earth on one side, and the dominions of death, destruction, darkness, and fringe on the other, a great war broke out in the dominion of Earth. The dominion of Earth, Red Earth City. The gods of the dominions of wind, fire, lightning, and earth stood densely on the city gates. Their energy crystal cannons fired blazing energy crystals at the city gates. Outside Crimson Earth City, the gods of death, darkness, destruction, and fringe, led by Yarus, Bolans, Sanguis, and the others, were charging towards Crimson Earth City without a care for their own safety. They were trying to annihilate every god in the city. Among them, the 1,000 demon guards of the Han family of Pandemonium were the most eye-catching. They were lined up in an orderly formation. Led by Bolans, Sanguinar, and Gilbert, the 1,000 demon guards of the Han family were like a sharp knife stabbing into Red Earth City. The Han family demon guards were able to calmly dodge the energy crystal cannons fired from above Red Earth City, maintaining a steady speed as they charged towards Red Earth City. Brian was able to become the master of the Pandemonium in such a short time and gain the recognition of the quintessence over God. It was no mere fluke. Yarus, who was charging from the other side, sighed deeply when he saw the Han family demon guards advancing triumphantly. "I'm afraid I can't call him by his name anymore." The Lord of Blackwater curled his lips and said softly, "It seems that it wasn't a shame that we lost to him back then. I've already regarded that battle with him as an honor." The Lord of Blackrock City shouted. His eyes glowed with divine light. "That's right. Even if we lose, it will be a lifelong honor to have the opportunity to fight such a character." Yarus nodded and smiled. He took the lead and said, "Hurry up, the fringe dwellers have stolen the limelight. Don't wait for the over-god to blame us for our incompetence." Upon hearing Yarus' words, the experts of the Dominion of Darkness charged forward with all their might. One after another, they swarmed towards Red Earth City. "We've broken through. Ha ha." Sanguis soared into the sky with a blood-colored radiance. He let out a shrill howl and swung the broadsword in his hand. Blood gushed out of the bodies of many gods on the city walls. They died on the spot with blood gushing out of their 7 orifices. Seizing the opportunity, Sanguinar, Gilbert, and Bolans landed on top of Red Earth City and killed all the gods around the energy crystal cannons. Without the protection of the energy crystal cannons, Red Earth City could only rely on the power of the barrier to defend itself. Every city's barrier had a limit to its defensive power, and now that it was being bombarded by the gods, Red Earth City's barrier quickly reached its limit. Asterisk crack. Asterisk a loud crack sounded. Red Earth City's boundaries shattered and the entire city was exposed. Attack! The gods of darkness, death, destruction, and the fringe roared with laughter as they charged into the city. They killed anyone they saw and stood together with the Red Earth City divine guards. The entire Red Earth City was covered in dark clouds. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. The earth was torn apart, the wind howled, and the flames spread. Asterisk 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 my lord, we've won Red Earth City. The city gates have been breached. Even if we can't achieve a complete victory, we've dealt a heavy blow to the 4 dominions. It was at this moment that Tanai, Zovich, came to Han Shoror's side and reported. Han Shoror, who was sitting in the middle of a group of beautiful women and explaining the secrets of various energies with a bitter face, nodded and asked, I'm not surprised that Red Earth City was breached. Is there anything else special? The experts from the dominions of light, life, and water left not long after returning to Light City. Zovich asked with a bunched brows after a moment of hesitation. Which direction did they go? Han Shoror stared blankly for a moment before he asked smilingly. In our direction. If I'm not mistaken, their destination should be the fringe. Zovich replied with a bitter smile. Ah! Han Shoror cried out in surprise. He then shouted, haha, it seems that Arstings and the others are treating us like pushovers. The way I see it, they're afraid of our Han family's 1,000 demon guards. They want to take advantage of the fringe's absence to annihilate us. Zovich harumphed coldly as if he despised the dominions of God of Light's actions. That's a good choice. Han Shoror smiled and said, the dominions of Earth are in a chaotic war right now. Even with the spatial matrix, we can't take care of both sides. That Arstings's judgment is quite accurate. My lord, what should we do? Zovich asked worriedly. Tanai really doesn't have many experts. Once their allied forces enter Hexopolis, I'm afraid we won't be able to hold them off. Don't worry, do what you have to do. Han Shoror consoled Zovich before he sneered, hehe, as long as Goldie and the others are in Hexopolis, let them come. Chapter 1023. In the end, Zovich did not inform anyone of the crisis in Hexopolis. He only informed the 5 elite zombies of the light, life, and water dominions of the future. Just like Han Shoror, Han Jin arrogantly declared, let them come. Just as arrogant as his father was, so was his son. The battle in the Dominion of Earth grew more and more intense. Experts from all 7 dominions and the Fringe joined the fray. The 1,000 demon guards from the Han family of the Fringe shone brilliantly and played an extremely important role in the battle. Salas, Wasis, and the fiendish gods under their command also performed extraordinarily well in the battle. Every god from the Fringe was a ferocious individual who would fight with their lives on the line. They demonstrated to Yarus what true savagery was. The experts from the Space Dominion under Fernando's command did not participate in the battle. Instead, they patrolled the darkness, destruction, darkness, and the Fringe to deal with any unexpected incidents. The dominions of light, life, and water could launch a surprise attack on the Dominion of Destiny. The dominions of earth, wind, fire, and lightning could launch a surprise attack on the God of Light. Since Yarus and his companions had launched a surprise attack on the Dominion of Earth, the dominions of darkness, death, destruction, and the Fringe could also be conquered at any time. To prevent themselves from suffering a similar attack, the dominions of darkness, death, destruction, space, and Fringe agreed to send reinforcements from the Space Dominion. As cultivators of the divine energy of space and with the help of a spatial matrix, they could maximize their speed. If any of the dominions were to be attacked, they would be able to reach them immediately. Apart from that, the gods from the Space Dominion were also responsible for collecting information from other dominions. Zovich received the news that the dominions of life, space, and water had marched to the Fringe from none other than McKinley of the Space Dominion. After McKinley relayed the news to the Fringe, he immediately joined forces with the city lords of the other 2 cities and rapidly assembled the forces of the 3 dominions, ready to send reinforcements to the Fringe at a moment's notice. As expected, when the battle in the Dominion of Earth reached its climax, the Allied army formed by the dominions of life, light, and water finally marched into the Fringe. They advanced at the fastest speed possible and arrived at the Chaos Demonic City in just 7 days. Chaos Demonic City, on the city walls. Han Jin, Han Shui, Han Mu, Han Jin, and Han Hua stood in 5 different directions, each taking in one of the city walls. Inside Hexopolis, at the center of the enormous planar spatial magic array, one figure after another appeared. As soon as these gods from the Dominion of Space entered Hexopolis, They used the power of spatial teleportation to fill in every corner of the city, filling in the gaps in the city's defenses. "Heh! Why are you here?" Han Jin asked curiously as he looked at McKinley, who had teleported to his side. "Haha, our space dominion's responsibility is to provide support to the other dominions at all times. Now that the dominions of darkness, death, and destruction are safe and sound, it's only the fringe that's under attack." After a short pause, McKinley smiled and continued, "Even if all three dominions are under attack at the same time, I will still choose the fringe to salvage the situation." McKinley and the Han family had a close relationship. Han Shoror had offended the god of light, Arstings, for McKinley's sake. He had even pulverized Jar, one of the three keepers of the light, for the Han family. "Han Jin, let me introduce you. This is Ka. He has come specifically for Jar." "Haha, of course, I will also deal with Jar, but I'm afraid I won't be a match for Jar." McKinley smiled as he introduced to Han Jin a long-bearded, white-haired old man. He cultivated in the Edict of Space and had returned to Elysium after a long journey through space. He was sent by Fernando to fight Jar. "Ah, nice to meet you." Han Jin greeted the old man with a smile. Shortly after, he said, "It seems that Jar is dead for sure." McKinley and Ka shared a similar smile. They looked at the approaching army of the dominions of light, life, and water and asked, "How should we deal with them?" "Just watch, it's about to begin." Han Jin smiled and suddenly let out a shrill cry. Han Jin's shrill cry was followed by the cries of Han Shui, Han Mu, Han Hua, and Han Tu from the other four directions of Hexopolis. All of a sudden, Han Jin dived into the ground. The earth tore open a hole and enveloped Han Jin. Rumble. Rumble. The moment Han Jin landed on the ground, the entire Hexopolis seemed to tremble. Loud rumbles could be heard. Suddenly, right in the middle of the dominions of light, life, and water, the earth started tearing apart and sinking deep. Sharp spikes shot out from the ground, piercing through many gods from the three dominions. Boiling lava rose into the sky, wreaking havoc in all directions. An enormous mass of black light exploded in the middle of the dominions. Many of them were blasted into nothingness, their souls dispersing. In that instant, apart from the pandemonium, the entire world seemed to have changed. Thick black clouds covered the entire sky, blocking out all light. Amidst the oppressive dark clouds, streaks of black light and icicles rained down, pulverizing many more gods from the three dominions. The world seemed to have returned to a state of deathly stillness. The penta-elemental undead formation was pushed to its limit. The penta-elemental undead formation was activated to the extreme. It was like an incomparably huge killing machine, leaving no survivors wherever it passed. The allied forces from the three celestial realms were torn to shreds, their souls flying into the void one after another. McKinley and Ka, the two experts from the Space Dominion, had prepared a plan and were about to discuss it with Han Jin. However, they found out that the battle had broken out in the blink of an eye. The two did not even see anyone from Hexopolis making a move. What the F***ck is going on? After a while, Ka, a pseudo-overgod from the Space Dominion who had always been gentle and refined, cursed. McKinley's face turned bitter. He shook his head and sighed. "I told you that the Han family of Pandemonium is extremely powerful. Do you believe me now?" Ka was stunned. He stared blankly for a moment before he shouted, "Isn't this a little too much? I didn't even see anyone enter the battlefield. Isn't such destructive power something only quintessence overgods can possess? Is it because I've been away from Elysium for too long that I can't keep up with the times?" After hesitating for a long time, Kerry stared blankly at McKinley and said, "Are they breaking the rules by doing this? Will the quintessence overgods participate?" "How would I know?" McKinley forced a smile. Ever since the last battle in the Fringe, apart from Han Jin, who advanced further in the crystal explosion in Hexopolis, the other four elite zombies had each obtained a pseudo-overgod's divine soul. When Pandemonium Tanai's ninth realm mystical yin harvester took shape, the elite zombies, with the exception of Han Shoror, got a share. With the help of Pandemonium Tanai's vast mystical yin aura and a pseudo-overgod's quintessence, the elite zombies broke through to new realms. Now, even in a one-on-one battle, The elite zombies were no weaker than an average pseudo-overgod. When the elite zombies joined forces to form the penta-elemental undead formation, their strength would increase by more than 5 times. The elite zombies were extremely unique lifeforms. When the energy they cultivated fused with the profound edicts of this world, the power they could generate when they deployed the penta-elemental undead formation was earth-shattering. This was also why Han Shoror said that as long as the elite zombies were present, the gods from the dominions of light, life, and water could do whatever they wanted. McKinley and Kerry weren't the only ones who were flabbergasted. Even the gods who were originally stationed in Hexopolis were dumbfounded. They couldn't believe their eyes. Although the 5 elite zombies rarely roamed around Hexopolis, many people knew who they were. When they saw the 5 elite zombies suddenly unleash a terrifying wave of destruction, the people of Hexopolis and the reinforcements from the overgod of space were dumbfounded. Lord McKinley, experts from the Destiny Dominion have arrived at the fringe. Suddenly, a cry of surprise came from McKinley's magical mirror. McKinley was startled. He immediately contacted the transmitter and learned that the experts from the Destiny Dominion had managed to evade the eyes of the Space Dominion and were heading towards the fringe. The fringe was located between the Destiny Dominion and the Space Dominion. The distance between the fringe and the Destiny Dominion was even smaller. They could reach the fringe in no time at all. This is bad. It seems that the Destiny Dominion is taking this opportunity to attack the fringe, McKinley cried to Carr. It is also possible that the Destiny Dominion is targeting the dominions of light, life, and water. After all, the dominions of light, life, and water were the first to attack. Carr bunched his brows and said, but, given the Destiny Dominion's modus operandi, it is most likely that they are trying to take advantage of the situation and attack the experts from the fringe and the dominions of light, life, and water. McKinley sneered and said, if they want to take advantage of the situation, they'll have to get past us first. McKinley, don't be rash. Carr frowned and shouted, even the allied forces of the dominions of light, life, and water couldn't gain the upper hand against the Destiny Dominion. I'm afraid we are no match for them. Why don't we quickly contact the experts from the dominions of darkness, death, and destruction and have them come to the fringe? McKinley calmed down after hearing Carr's reminder. He thought for a moment and said, this is the safest way. Let's do it. My lord, the gods of the Destiny Dominion have retreated again. A voice suddenly sounded from the magical mirror. What? McKinley and Carr exclaimed in unison. They exchanged a glance and smiled bitterly as they looked at the huge commotion outside the fringe Hexopolis. They suddenly understood why the gods of the Destiny Dominion had retreated. If they were in the fringe Hexopolis shoes, they would have chosen to retreat as well. Chapter 1024. The gods from the Dominion of Destiny had arrived abruptly and left without a trace. McKinley and Kerry had already prepared themselves for a bloody battle. After all, the Dominion of Destiny was a force to be reckoned with. Neither of them dared to underestimate the Dominion of light, life, and water. The Dominion of Destiny was the most powerful dominion on Elysium. McKinley quietly put away the magic mirror in his hand. He had a bitter smile on his face as he stared at the experts from the light, life, and water dominions, whose numbers continued to decrease amid the destructive power. For a time, he didn't know what to say. McKinley had known all along that Han Shoror must have grasped a tremendous amount of power. But he did not expect that Han Shoror's power would be this strong. Han Jin, Han Shui, Han Mu, Han Hua, and Han Tu, all of whom possessed demi-overgod strength, were wreaking havoc outside Hexopolis with the help of the penta-elemental undead formation. It was at this moment that Pandemonium Tanai and Pandemonium arrived. As soon as Arstings, the god of light, and Manju, the water goddess, entered Pandemonium, Han Shoror's avatar in the depths of the valley immediately sensed their presence. His avatar in Tanai welcomed them. What an honored guest, Han Shoror laughed heartily. Tanai looked at Arstings, the water goddess, and Manju, the water goddess. Han Shoror, you are breaking the rules, Arstings said in a deep voice, his smile gone. At the same time, Han Shoror, who was deep underground, sensed that the goddess of life had arrived at Hexopolis. She unleashed an incomparably powerful storm of life, first restoring the life force of the gods whose souls had yet to leave the dominions of life, light, and water. Then, she used the storm of life to disrupt the souls of the 5 elite zombies so that they could no longer maintain the penta-elemental undead formation. Han Shuor's face jolted and he shouted, "Astings, Manju, what is the meaning of this?" After Han Shuor shouted, he immediately contacted Fernando, the god of space. Before Astings, the god of light, could reply, a dimensional tunnel formed in Tanai. Fernando, Nestet, Omphalos, and Gurado appeared and glared at Astings and Manju. What did those 5 do outside Hexopolis? Manju shrieked, half of the allied army of the 3 dominions have been killed by those 5. Isn't this breaking the rules? Manju's shriek stunned Fernando, Nestet, Omphalos, and Gurado. They had no idea what was going on. It was only after hearing Manju's words that they put on a puzzled look. Fernando looked at Han Shuor and asked, "Is that true?" Han Shuor nodded and shouted at Astings and Manju, "Those 5 all possess demi-overgod strength. Not a single one of them possesses the power of a quintessence. There are also quite a few demi-overgod experts among the invading gods. How did I break the rules? Individually, the 5 of them possess the power of a demi-overgod. However, when they join forces, they possess the power of half a quintessence." Astings was enraged and lost his usual composure. He shouted, "If this goes on, what's the point of fighting the war of the gods? If the 5 of them join forces, they can practically wipe out all the dominions. What's the point of this war?" "That's right." Another soft exclamation came from outside. It was Orseha, the goddess of destiny, who had not used the spatial passage to enter the pandemonium. She looked at Han Shuor and said, "When the 5 of them join forces, their power is indeed far greater than half a demi-overgods. However, it's not just the power of 5 demi-overgods. Han Shuor, if this goes on, the war of the gods will be meaningless. It will become a massacre in the fringe." Upon hearing the goddess of destiny's words, Astings and Manju hurriedly chimed in and attacked Han Shuor with righteous words. Fernando, Nestet, Omphalos, and Gurado were on Han Shuor's side. They immediately started arguing with Han Shuor. The 6 quintessence over gods and Han Shuor started arguing in the pandemonium. For a moment, no one could gain the upper hand. After a long while, the goddess of destiny realized that this wasn't going to work. She had no choice but to suggest to Fernando, "Let's do it the same way." The 12 quintessence over gods had ruled over Elysium for a very long time. It was common for them to have disagreements with each other. Whenever they disagreed, they would use the method of everyone expressing their opinions. Fernando knew that it wouldn't be beneficial for them to have more people express their opinions, but he had no choice. The rules that had been in place for many years couldn't be changed. He had no choice but to create more spatial passages and send more quintessence over gods to the pandemonium. Just as Han Shuor had expected, other than Han Shuor and his allies, Fernando, Nestet, Omphalos, and Gurado, the other quintessence over gods all rebuked Han Shuor righteously and sternly stopped Han Shuor's tyrannical behavior. Now, including Han Shuor and his father, there were a total of 14 quintessence over gods. Han Shuor couldn't do anything about the other 8 quintessence over gods. "Forget it. From today onwards, I will stop the 5 of them from joining forces. I don't want them to say that I'm bullying you," said Han Shuor helplessly with a shrug. "No, those 5 must not participate in the war. I just noticed that when any 2 of them join forces, their strength will not simply double," said Lena sternly. "I don't know how they do it, but as long as 2 of them are together, they can create terrifying destructive power. With every additional member, the power will increase by more than 10 times. Those 5 must not participate in the war." The other 7 quintessence over gods agreed with Lena's words, but their faces were extremely ugly. They weren't worried about the 5 elite zombies. After all, even if the 5 elite zombies joined forces to form the penta-elemental undead formation, they would only have the strength of half a quintessence over god. They wouldn't be a match for any one of them. What they were worried about was Han Shuor, or to be more precise, the demonic arts Han Shuor cultivated. Demonic arts could create the 5 elite zombies and allow Han Hao to mutate into a quintessence. Just what heights could Han Shuor, who had been cultivating demonic arts, reach? Back then, when Jiyu Tianxie, the exalted demon lord, broke through the barrier of the universe, he was still able to keep the All-Mother dormant until now. As long as Han Shuo possessed even half of Jiyu Tianxie's strength, even if they joined forces to destroy the All-Mother, they wouldn't be able to do anything to Han Shuo. With that in mind, the quintessence overgods all made up their minds. Once Han Shuo broke through Eternia's barrier, they would immediately kill him at all costs and get rid of this thorn in their side. If you don't want to fight, then don't. There are too many of you. I can't compete with you, snorted Han Shuo as he looked at them coldly. After observing for a moment, Han Shuo discovered that, apart from Fernando who stood firmly by his side, even Nestet, Omphalos, and Gerardo's eyes were starting to flicker. Han Shuo sighed inwardly. The power of the 5 elite zombies had shocked the 12 overgods too much. Perhaps Nestet, Omphalos, and Gerardo had also realized that they wouldn't be able to appease themselves if this continued. Therefore, they had started to seriously consider what to do after they destroyed the creator deities. Han Shuo knew that he couldn't provoke them right now. Otherwise, if things went awry, he would suffer great losses even before the barrier of Eternia was broken. All right then. The 5 of them can no longer participate in the battle, but we can continue the battle, the goddess of destiny announced. Orseha, how much more do you need? Astings felt a pang in his heart. This time, the dominions of light, life, and water had suffered great losses at the hands of the 5 elite zombies. They were the first to start the war and had already suffered great losses at the dominion of destiny. Then, the dominions of wind, fire, lightning, and earth attacked the dominions of God of Light, causing them to suffer great losses once more. At this point, Astings had no choice but to consider the 3 dominions. He was already thinking of retreating. I'm almost there. I just don't know how much more he needs. Orseha seemed determined to divert the anger of the crowd onto Han Shuo. She glanced at Han Shuo and said indifferently, "How much more do you need?" Astings, Lena, and Manju glared at Han Shuo and shouted at the same time. Soon, soon. Han Shuo's expression was awkward as he smiled sheepishly. He knew that Astings and the other 2 were in a foul mood. The 4 overgods of earth, wind, fire, and lightning who had also suffered great losses were just as upset. If he said that the more the merrier, he would immediately be attacked by the crowd. Therefore, he had no choice but to go along with Orseha. If I don't have any gods at my disposal in the dominions of God of Light, don't blame me for breaking the rules and leaving all of you with no one to fight. Astings coldly groaned and left angrily. Manju and Lena glared at Han Shuo and followed Astings out of the pandemonium. The 4 overgods of earth, wind, fire, and lightning also snorted and entered the spatial passageway. The goddess of destiny gave Han Shuo a sidelong glance and left the pandemonium with a strange expression on her face. She did not use the spatial passageway and left the pandemonium with Astings and the other 2. That's enough. Let's call it a day. Gerardo walked up to Han Shuo and patted Han Shuo's shoulder, saying, "If this goes on, I'm afraid that these fellows won't be able to control themselves. What do you think? I've never been one to start a war. I've always been a pacifist. As long as others don't attack me, I won't take the initiative to attack them." Han Shuo spread out his hands, putting on an innocent look. "Are we talking about him?" Nestet pointed at the silent little skull Han Hao and said, "During the war, the god hunters in the 12 dominions ran amok. The situation is getting worse. We can't let this go on." "Oh." Han Shuo nodded and glanced at little skull Han Hao. He smiled and said, "It's fine. You guys can go back now. The war in the Dominion of Earth is still ongoing." "Okay," Nestet and the other 2 nodded and entered the spatial passageway together. "I'll support you no matter what." When only Han Shuo and his son were left, Fernando, the overgod of space, said indifferently before disappearing, "In the future, I'll leave a spot in your Dominion of Space," said Han Shuo with a grin after Fernando left. Chapter 1025. The 5 elite zombies no longer participated in the battle. But with the devastating attacks of the 5 elite zombies, the experts from the dominions of life, light, and water who had come to the fringe suffered disastrous losses. The remaining forces of the Fringe could no longer pose a threat to the Fringe dwellers who were aided by the experts from the Space Dominion. In the end, the experts from the dominions of light, life, and water obediently dispersed. They did not dare to fight to the death. After that, a bloody battle ensued in the Earth Dominion. The experts from the dominions of earth, wind, lightning, and fire, as well as those from the dominions of darkness, destruction, death, suffered heavy casualties. Even the experts under Wasis and Salas perished in the battle. The overgod of light, Arstings, left behind a message before he left the Fringe was a powerful deterrent. The dominions of light, life, and water, which suffered the heaviest losses, did not attack again. The experts from the other dominions also did not dare to challenge Arstings and his companions' bottom line and left them alone. The Destiny Dominion, on the other hand, was completely silent. Ever since they retreated from the Fringe, they seemed to have vanished without a trace. They no longer cared about the conflicts on the continent. The gods of the Destiny Dominion also holed up in the Destiny Dominion. Gradually, the Dominion of Earth was the only one left fighting. When the experts from the dominions of earth, wind, lightning, and fire gathered in the Dominion of Earth, Nestet and his companions could no longer gain the upper hand. For a long period of time, the losses on both sides gradually equalized. Neither side was able to gain the upper hand. In the end, Nestet and his companions, seeing that the situation was getting out of hand, begged Han-Shor to stop the pointless losses. Or-Sehar, the goddess of destiny, had long stated that the mirror of destiny required sufficient divine souls. Faced with the pressure from the quintessence over gods, Han-Shor had no choice but to compromise and say that the cauldron of myriad demon had sufficient divine souls. Han-Shor declared the end of the battle of the gods. In the 50-year-long war, the dominions of light, life, and water suffered the greatest losses. 2/3 of their gods were gone forever. Many cities in the three dominions were deserted. The Earth Dominion, Wind Dominion, Fire Dominion, and Lightning Dominion followed closely behind, especially the Earth Dominion. As the largest battlefield, the Earth Dominion was heavily damaged by the allied armies of the Dominion. After that, a series of battles took place in the Earth Dominion, causing many of its experts to die forever. Nestor and the others didn't have much of an advantage in the battle in the Dominion of Earth. The dominions of death, darkness, and destruction also lost quite a number of their people. Many of Wasis and Sala's subordinates were killed as well. Apart from the first battle against the dominions of light, life, and water, the Dominion of Destiny did not participate in the subsequent battles. Their overall strength was stronger and they managed to preserve their strength. In this war of gods that swept across the continent, the Space Dominion had suffered the least losses. As a scattered force, they only joined the Earth Dominion in the final battle to help the Death, Darkness, and Destruction Dominion in battle. However, not long after they joined the battle, Han-Shor announced that the Cauldron of Myriad Demon had sufficient divine souls. Therefore, the Dominion of Space was the side that suffered the least casualties. Wasis and Salas had lost many of their subordinates, but the Han family demon guards led by Bolans, Sanguinar, and Gilbert did not suffer too many losses. The most dazzling and powerful members of the Battle of the Gods had shocked the entire Elysium with their outstanding overall strength. The Han family demon guards became famous after the battle and became synonymous with the strongest demon guards on Elysium. The God Hunter Alliance led by Han Hao frequently appeared in mountains, lakes, and swamps during the battle. Their shadows could always be seen in places where the battle was intense. However, they never joined the battle in the open. Instead, they chose to attack the experts who were hiding or the gods who came to support them. They were like venomous snakes hiding in the bushes. They would come out of nowhere and bite you when you least expect them to. Then, they would quickly retreat, not giving you a chance to catch them. Everyone had their own opinions on how effective the God Hunters under Han Hao's command were in the battle. However, some of the city lords and divine guards who were attacked by the God Hunters gnashed their teeth in hatred. It seemed that the God Hunters hiding in the dark had caused them a lot of pain. The Battle of the Gods had finally ended. The experts of the 12 divine dominions returned to their dominions and began to reorganize their forces. They recruited experts from their cities to form new divine guards to fill in the gaps. As the threat of Eternia grew closer and closer, the 12 overgods sought out Han-Shoror to ask when Han-Shoror would be able to break through Eternia's defensive barrier. Citing the fact that his main body was too weak to use the Cauldron of Myriad Demon, Han-Shoror repeatedly refused to go to Eternia. Both his main body and avatar remained hidden in Pandemonium, silently preparing for the battle. In the blink of an eye, 150 years had passed. On this day, an intense wave of energy suddenly erupted from Pandemonium. The shockingly powerful energy wave caused the entire world to change. Many experts on Elysium felt a deep sense of danger. At almost the same time, the 12 overgods sensed the earth-shattering magnetic field that was leaking out from Pandemonium. With the Pandemonium as the center, the remaining mystical yin energy on Elysium gushed into the Pandemonium. Streams of mystical yin energy that were visible to the naked eye were sucked into the Pandemonium by a powerful suction force. The Pandemonium had turned into a sea of whiteness. The quintessence overgods could sense a mysterious energy emanating from the Pandemonium. They could also sense the terrifying aura emanating from the depths of the earth. The 12 quintessence overgods were shocked and they couldn't help but return to the Pandemonium from their dominions. As far as the eye could see, the Pandemonium was filled with white mystical yin energy. This strange energy that had been formed on Elysium for millions of years had been completely absorbed by the Pandemonium over the past 200 years. The remaining energy was gathered in the Pandemonium, accumulating the last bit of energy for the transformation that was taking place in the depths of the earth. This energy is probably enough to tear apart Eternia's defensive barrier. Seha, the goddess of destiny, sensed the constantly changing aura deep underground of Pandemonium. She watched as the mystical yin energy was compressed thousands of times and turned into a heavy liquid that slowly flowed like mercury. Seha, have we made the wrong decision? Astings, the god of light, took a deep breath and said, I am certain that his power has already surpassed ours. Even if the All-Mother perishes, he is still not someone we can deal with. Seha fell silent. After a long while, she muttered, Astings, I know what you are worried about. But don't you worry. If Eternia is destroyed, we will not be the first to suffer. Manju's eyes lit up when she heard that. She smiled and nodded, that's right. To the All-Mother, he is the greatest threat. No matter how powerful we are, our powers are bestowed by the All-Mother. This person, on the other hand, wields power that does not belong to this universe. To the All-Mother, his power should be the first to be eradicated. Everyone nodded in agreement after hearing Manju's words. Smiles reappeared on their faces. Nestet, Omphalos, and Garado's eyes flickered with uncertainty. They, too, were shaken by the terrifying energy deep underground of Pandemonium. They began to wonder if working with Han-Shoror was the right choice. The only one who was happy was the overgod of space, Fernando. Han-Shoror's power had given him hope of leaving this universe and traveling to another. To him, the more powerful Han-Shoror was, the better it would be. A long howl came from the depths of the Pandemonium. All of a sudden, the mystical yin energy that pervaded the entire Pandemonium plunged into the earth at a speed 100 times faster than normal. In just a few short minutes, an even more terrifying energy erupted from the depths of the earth. Crack, crack, crack. A long crevice was torn open in the Pandemonium. A figure shrouded in white dragon mist flew up into the sky. The mystical yin energy that flowed like mercury around his body was constantly being compressed. More and more energy was released from his body. All of a sudden, all the mist was sucked into his nose and mouth. All the liquid mystical yin energy was sucked into his pores. Under the gaze of the 12 overgods, he slowly returned to normal. Slowly, he became more and more like a normal person. It was also at this time that a spatial tunnel opened up, and a huge white bone throne flashed into view. Evil, cold, hatred, fear, rage, violence, and other negative energies were released from the little skull, Han Hao, who was sitting on the bone throne. Looking at the ever-changing Han-Shoror, the little skull, Han Hao softly said, Father, my power has finally reached the peak. I am now the Lord of Demons, the Lord of all demons. A beam of dazzling light like the scorching sun suddenly burst out from Han-Shoror's body. The light flashed and disappeared. When the light completely disappeared, a black-clothed Han Shor appeared with a smile. "I'm ready." Looking at the 12 overgods, Han Shor said, "If it's possible, let's go now." The 12 overgods, who had been waiting for this day for tens of thousands of years, immediately nodded in agreement when they heard Han Shor's words. The overgod of space, Fernando, didn't waste any time. Impatient, the overgod of mind, immediately created a spatial tunnel for the 12 overgods to enter. "Fernando, after this battle is over, I will help you break through the barriers of the universe and fulfill your wish," said Han Shor as he watched the overgods enter. "Many thanks." Fernando gave a rare smile and gestured for Han Shor to enter first. He smiled at the little skull, Han Shor, who was sitting on the bone throne. Han Shor took the lead and entered, followed by the little skull, Han Shor. Chapter 10:26. Amidst the thick mist, Eternia was still moving slowly. It was getting closer and closer to Elysium. Rays of light were released around Eternia. The energies of various elements were intertwined to protect the mysterious castle where the All-Mother resided. "We really don't have much time left." Orseha's expression changed slightly. Judging from the trajectory of Eternia, it would probably hit Elysium in a few decades. Once Elysium was destroyed, the remaining gods would not be able to escape their fate. Without the support of faith, they would lose control of their quintessence and be easily killed by the All-Mother. Han Shor, break the boundary. Monroe glared at Han Shor hatefully and shouted, "If you can't break the boundary, we will kill you first. We, the Dominions, have paid such a heavy price just for this day. Monroe, since when did you have the right to yell at me?" Han Shor's eyes slanted as he coldly shot a glance at the goddess of water. "You." Manju was enraged. A crystal-clear water droplet suddenly flew out of her body and headed straight for Han Shor. 200 years ago, Manju suddenly appeared at this place and restrained Han Shor's avatar. She also used harsh words to humiliate Han Shor. At that time, Han Shor's main body was still in pandemonium. His avatar's power was insufficient to contend against Manju. He could only endure it. Han Shor snorted coldly. The cauldron of myriad demon suddenly whizzed out of his body. Before the giant water droplet could get close, the cauldron lightly shook and rippled outwards. The ripple pushed Manju's water droplet far away. The powerful ripple then pushed Manju's water droplet away. Bang! It was as if Monroe's body had suffered a heavy blow, and her body was involuntarily thrown far away. She suddenly dispersed like flowing water, and only slowly reformed her body after a long while. She gnashed her teeth and glared at Han Shor, but was unable to utter any more threatening words. "That was 200 years ago. If you dare speak rudely to me again, I won't be so gentle next time." Han Shor sneered. He reached out and grabbed the cauldron of myriad demon. You. Manju was furious, but she realized that today's Han Shor was no longer someone she could bully. "Don't talk about me, Manju, I'm telling you, you better behave yourself," Han Shor said coldly. He glanced sideways at Arstings and Lena, then at the 4 overgods of wind, fire, lightning, and earth. He suddenly laughed and said, "Hehe, I know that there are many who want to attack me after I break the boundary. I'll wait and see who gets the upper hand." Han Shor said no more. His eyes turned solemn. Rays of black light shot out from his eyes and poured into the center of the cauldron of myriad demon. Suddenly, the cauldron of myriad demon released rays of black light. Terrifying howls that made one's hair stand on end came from it. It was as if there were many terrifying demons imprisoned in the cauldron of myriad demon and they were trying to break free. During this process, the cauldron of myriad demon gradually expanded into a giant black sphere. Ancient and profound characters flowed on the surface of the sphere, and ghastly faces appeared one after another. An ancient, mysterious, evil, and boundless energy was gradually released from the cauldron of myriad demon. In an instant, the sun, moon, and stars alternated on the sphere, as well as mountains, rivers, and lakes dried up. Many vivid and lifelike images appeared on the surface of the sphere, depicting all kinds of natural sceneries. Rays of black light suddenly burst out of the cauldron of myriad demon. Each light had a life of its own. As soon as they flew out of the cauldron of myriad demon, they let out terrifying screams that shook the heavens and the earth. They devoured, tangled, and fused with each other. Slowly, they grew stronger. In just a few moments, they had formed an enormous circle of light. Crack, crack. A strange, crisp sound came from above Sky City, and the powerful barrier formed by the various forces of this universe actually cracked little by little along with the sound. What a terrifying power! It really broke Eternia's boundary. Bel, the goddess of wind, couldn't help but exclaim in shock. All of the quintessence over gods wore expressions of surprise and joy on their faces. They all stared intently at Eternia's boundary, which was slowly breaking apart. After waiting for God knows how many years, the boundary that they couldn't eat or sleep in peace was finally showing signs of breaking. While they were pleasantly surprised, they also felt an indescribable sense of fear. The power released from the cauldron of myriad demon was so vast and mysterious that even they, the so-called quintessence over gods, felt that they were no match for it. Eternia's boundary had yet to be broken, and they were already worried about the hidden danger that was Han-Shoror. Crack, 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 crack. Crisp sounds came from the colorful boundary. As the sounds rang out, the boundary that had protected Eternia for countless years finally began to crack bit by bit, revealing tiny cracks that were hard to see with the naked eye. We can go in now. At that moment, the master god of space let out a bellow. The moment his voice landed, a spatial passageway appeared from a crack. However, when the time came, the strongest quintessence over gods on Elysium began to hesitate. They looked at each other and stopped in front of the dimensional passage. No one dared to take the first step. To them, the silent All-Mother in Eternia was the most terrifying existence in the universe. In their long lives, the shock that the Mother Goddess had brought them was too intense. Even though they knew that the Mother Goddess was heavily injured, they still hesitated at the most critical moment. If she doesn't die, you all will. This is a rare opportunity. What are you hesitating for? Han-Shoror sneered. The dark light in his eyes intensified as he infused it into the cauldron of myriad demon, boosting its power and causing the crack in Eternia to widen. Perhaps because of Han-Shoror's words, Orseha, the goddess of destiny, hesitated for a moment before she finally said, "That's right. If she doesn't die, we will all die. Everyone, we've waited for so long. It's about time we put an end to this. My power alone is definitely not enough to threaten her. I think we should work together at this time. I think we should delay the matter of Han Hao. To us, she is far more of a threat than anyone else. Perhaps we should all work together and eliminate her first before we talk about other things," Nestet, the overgod of death, suddenly said as he glanced at Han-Shoror. If Han-Shoror hadn't displayed his formidable power just now, perhaps these so-called quintessence overgods would have already started attacking Han-Shoror. But after Han-Shoror used his power to intimidate the goddess of water, Manju, they began to take Han-Shoror's power seriously. No one dared to look down on an outsider like Han-Shoror anymore. That's right. It's no longer appropriate for us to deal with Han-Shoror according to our original plan. Arstings, the god of light, didn't deny his sinister intentions. He said, given Han-Shoror's power, it's not very possible for us to kill him unscathed. We can't waste any more power at this time. Han-Shoror, you know that she won't let you go either. I think we should finish her off first. Oh, of course, that's what I mean too. Han-Shoror smiled. After she's dead, we'll slowly settle the score. At that time, we'll only know who will become the true master of this universe after a battle. Let's go in together. It was Orseha, the goddess of destiny, who spoke. She asked for the opinions of the others, and they all nodded in agreement. At this critical moment, the quintessence over God's temperament of looking at the big picture was revealed. Let's go. Fernando called out, taking the lead and slowly walking into the spatial tunnel. The quintessence over gods immediately followed, walking side by side with Fernando. Han-Shoror gave little Skull Han Hao a look, and the two followed behind Fernando and the other quintessence over gods into the spatial tunnel. When Han-Shoror entered the spatial tunnel, a dark light flashed in Han-Shoror's eyes, and the cauldron of myriad demon suddenly roared. A series of explosions rang out, and the colorful barrier that enveloped Eternia was suddenly torn apart by the power of the cauldron of myriad demon, like a rag being torn apart. "It's all open," Fernando shouted, and hurriedly jumped into Eternia with Orsehar and the others. Han Shoror and Han Hao followed closely behind, and when they stepped into Eternia, they didn't forget to grab the cauldron of myriad demon. Stepping on the stone floor of Eternia, which was made of an unknown material, one could see that the huge city was completely empty. There was no sign of life at all, only elements so dense that it made one's heart tremble. It was no less than the elements gathered by the quintessence power of the 12 quintessence overgods. Han Shoror spread his consciousness and wandered around the empty world of Eternia, but to his surprise, he couldn't sense any signs of life. It was as if this was a dead city, and he couldn't find anything. "There's no life. What's going on?" Han Shoror was shocked. He immediately asked Lena, the goddess of life, "Can you sense her presence?" "My power comes from her. Even if she's right next to me, it's difficult for me to sense her presence." Lena smiled bitterly and spread her hands helplessly at Han Shoror. "We have to find her first." Fernando, the overgod of space, frowned. After entering the city, his body swayed a few times, and he used teleportation to walk around the various regions, but he couldn't find any trace of the All-Mother. He was extremely shocked, and for a moment, he didn't know what to do. "You're finally here, my children. I've been waiting for you for a long time." All of a sudden, a gentle voice drifted over Eternia. After a pause, she continued, "You're already standing on me, and you're still looking for me. What a joke." Chapter 10:27. As soon as the voice fell, Eternia's barrier, which Han Shoror had torn apart with the cauldron of myriad demon, was restored in an instant. Multicolored light enveloped Eternia, enveloping the 12 quintessence overgods and Han Shoror at the same time. A series of violent rumbles came from the center of Eternia, and a giant, oval-shaped egg emerged from the depths of the city. As soon as the egg emerged, it began absorbing the elemental power of the various elements in the city. The beautiful patterns on the egg flickered, forming beautiful halos. Crack, crack, crack. The huge egg cracked open, and a dazzlingly beautiful mature woman walked out of the eggshell. She was naked from head to toe, without a single piece of earthly clothing. She had a perfect body proportion, and her skin was sparkling, rippling with dazzling colors. Her pair of eyes, which contained the evolution of the vast stars, carried a faint smile. She walked out of the giant egg and raised her hand. The cracked giant egg suddenly flew out and wrapped around her beautiful body, the most exciting forbidden area. Beautiful patterns covered her body, giving people an intense shock that made them want to bow down and worship her. When the fragments of the cracked egg covered her body, the 12 quintessence overgods' expressions changed. Orsehar first respectfully called out, "Mother Goddess," and then shouted, "What are you waiting for?" As soon as she said that, the other 11 quintessence overgods didn't hesitate and attacked at the same time. They used the power of faith to suppress the 12 quintessence overgods, and the 12 quintessence overgods that had fused with them instantly erupted with earth-shattering power. Some quintessence overgods protruded from their chests, some appeared in their eyes, and some were held in their palms. The 12 quintessence overgods knew that if they wanted to fight her, they had to unleash all of their power in an instant, unleashing the full power of their quintessence overgods. A sea of fire, wind, lightning, frost, blinding light, endless darkness, and the power of destruction. All of a sudden, it was as if the world had ceased to exist. The power of the 12 godhood overgods was pushed to the limit, and the entire world went silent. The power of the 12 godhood overgods surged toward All-Mother, as if they were going to kill her in a single strike. "My adorable children, your powers were all bestowed upon you by me. How could you possibly harm me?" The Mother Goddess of Creation smiled kindly. She did not move, but a dazzling, colorful light suddenly bloomed from her body. The light intertwined and formed a protective boundary similar to the one outside the Sky Castle. The attacks of the 12 quintessence overgods were like pebbles sinking into the ocean as soon as they hit the barrier she had created. They couldn't do any damage to her at all. The 12 quintessence overgods looked horrified. Goddesses like Manju and Lena looked panicked. They didn't know what to do. In this universe, I will always be the only one. You were all born from this universe, and everything you have was bestowed upon you by me. I know you better than you know yourselves. I gave you power, raised you, and gave you the power to control the major planes. But you want to betray me, to betray your mother. You really are not good children. The All-Mother was all smiles. Her perfect body twisted strangely, and the colorful halos that bloomed from her body were absorbed back into her body bit by bit. The barrier she had just created had blocked the attacks of the 12 quintessence overgods. As soon as the light was absorbed back into her body, she seemed to have eaten a great tonic. Her aura became even more boundless, and even her skin became brighter and more dazzling. The 12 quintessence overgods looked even more grim. They didn't expect the mother goddess of creation to be so terrifying. Even after being injured, she still had such terrifying power. Everything we have was indeed given to us by you. However, you never had any good intentions. You gave us everything because you wanted to use us as your hands and feet to control everything in this universe. You gave us quintessence, but we can only borrow power from it. We can't truly possess quintessence. You've never treated us as children. You've only ordered us around like slaves. Orseha's expression slowly calmed down. What does it matter? The mother goddess of creation smiled kindly at Orseha. You are all my children. Isn't it natural for children to do things for their mothers? Haha, Orseha, you're the most promising one. But do you really think you can harm me by bringing them here and using their power? Of course I know they'll never be able to harm you. Even if you were injured back then, you could still easily destroy all of us if you wanted to. But once our quintessence is taken back, you won't be able to use it to continuously obtain faith power. You're using the 12 quintessence overgods to control us, and that hasn't changed even now. What a joke. They think you're hiding in Eternia because you were injured. Orseha laughed coldly. Not bad at all. The mother goddess of creation was very pleased. Orseha, you really are the smartest one. You actually know that I'm letting you live on purpose. Haha, if it weren't for you, I wouldn't have been able to use the 12 quintessence overgods to obtain so much faith power, and it would have been too troublesome to choose a new quintessence overgod. That's why you're still alive. You really are a smart child. The expressions of all the quintessence overgods except for Orseha changed when they heard that. Even Han-Shoror and his son were shocked. What do you mean, Orseha? Scarlet turned pale with fright. She said fearfully, are you saying that we should have died a long time ago? That she intentionally spared our lives, and not because she didn't have the ability to kill us? Does that mean that all our efforts over the years have been in vain? Our fates have been decided from the beginning, haven't they? You bitch. You knew everything, but you lied to us for so long. Orseha, you shameless, treacherous bitch. Scarlet, the goddess of water, no longer had her usual composure. After learning the truth, she revealed her fiercest side. Isn't that great? At least you've lived for so many years with hope in your hearts. If I had told you the truth back then, I don't think you would have lived happily until now, and you wouldn't have done so many things for me, Orseha said indifferently. What is it? Lena exclaimed. Our power comes from the All-Mother. No matter how weak the All-Mother is, we can't kill her. This is a fact that nobody can change. Orseha looked at the All-Mother calmly and said, you've nurtured us for so long. You've been waiting for us to return today so that you can take back our power, right? As long as you take back our power, you will be able to fully recover from your injuries. Then, you can release the 12 quintessences and nurture a new batch of quintessence overgods. Am I right? It seems that I've been a little careless after I was seriously injured. Orseha, did you remove the seal I placed on you? The mother goddess finally frowned slightly, as if something was out of her expectation. That's right. For the past 1 trillion years, my memories have been sealed by you, and I've been reincarnated continuously as the goddess of destiny. Every once in a while, you would summon all the quintessence overgods back and collect their power. Apart from me, all of the quintessence overgods had their souls destroyed, leaving only a strand of my consciousness to reincarnate. Once again, my power would awaken, and I would become the goddess of destiny. Just like the new quintessence overgods, my power would be absorbed by you and sent back into reincarnation. Come to think of it, this has happened 9 times already, right? Orseha's lips curled into a cold smile. If you hadn't been seriously injured during your battle with him, I would never have been able to understand the true meaning of destiny in that instant. I would have been under your control, toyed with by you over and over again, Orseha said coldly. Oh, so you know now. But what can you do? The All-Mother's smile returned, and she said gently, I'll take back your power soon, and then I'll seal your memories again. You'll be as clueless as before, and you'll continue to reincarnate, managing the trajectory of this universe's destiny for me, and collecting the destiny energy of this universe for me. You won't be able to resist at all. With that, the All-Mother put her hands together, and her eyes shone as bright as the sun. All of a sudden, 12 glowing vessels appeared from all directions in Eternia. These vessels contained the auras of light, darkness, death, destruction, wind, fire, lightning, earth, spacetime, fate, life, and water, and gave off powerful energy waves. Quintessence vessels. Asdin's turned pale with fright. The divine spark in his chest began to go out of control, and it slowly lifted him up into the container that contained the divine spark. It wasn't just Astings. All of the quintessence overgods except Han Hao began to lose control of their bodies. They were being controlled by the quintessence within them, and they were slowly being pulled towards the corresponding quintessence vessels. I can't resist you, but I can kill them, Orseha, the goddess of destiny, suddenly screamed madly. The mirror of destiny in her hand suddenly shone with strange colors, and the threads that represented the trajectory of destiny quickly tangled with each other. In just a short while, the trillions of threads in the mirror of destiny that represented the trajectory of destiny tangled into 11 abnormally thick and long lines. As soon as the 11 abnormally thick lines took shape, all of the quintessence overgods except Orseha paled, and their divine souls began to lose control. Orseha, what are you doing? Nestet, the overgod of death, shouted in shock. You'll never be able to escape her control. You're all going to die anyway, so I'll set you free forever. Orseha smiled coldly, and suddenly pulled at the 11 intertwined thick lines in the mirror of destiny. Orseha, you're courting death. The face of the All-Mother, who had been calm all this while, finally changed. She pointed a finger at Orseha, and a strange ray of light suddenly shot towards Orseha. Orseha, who was pulling at the thick lines in the mirror of destiny, was horrified. She shouted, Han Shao, hurry up and help me. I've spent so much effort to create a war of the gods on Elysium, and I've collected so many divine souls into the mirror of destiny just for this moment. As long as all the thick lines in the mirror of destiny that represent the divine souls of the quintessence overgods explode, the 11 divine souls and quintessence of the All-Mother will be completely destroyed. Only then will you have the chance to kill her. Han Hao, do it now. Han Shao only hesitated for a split second before he threw the cauldron of myriad demon at Orseha. Millions of dark rays suddenly illuminated Eternia, protecting Orseha within. Although the overgod of space, Fernando, would perish, they only had one chance. If they didn't seize this rare opportunity, they would never have another chance to resist. For the sake of the fringe, for the sake of pandemonium, for the sake of his family and friends, Han Shao had no choice but to give it his all. The cauldron of myriad demons' dark radiance blocked the strange light shot by the All-Mother. The energies of 2 universes erupted in dazzling colors in an instant. Han Shao's body trembled as blood flowed uncontrollably from his body. He barely managed to withstand the All-Mother's attack. You are still far from that person, Han Shao. How are you going to stop me? Said the All-Mother with a faint smile. She watched as the 12 quintessence overgods, including Orseha, slowly moved towards the quintessence vessel. Suddenly, 11 5-colored halos flew out of her hand and enveloped all the quintessence overgods except for Orseha. Oh no, Han Shao, help me out. Now that she's added a defensive barrier, even if I detonate their divine souls, I won't be able to blow up their quintessences as well. Han Shao, destroy those 11 defensive perimeters. That's the only way I can destroy their quintessence. Althea shrieked in panic. Understood. Shouted Han Shao. At the same time, a majestic figure carrying with it a strange power broke through the barrier of Eternia and landed in front of the All-Mother. It was none other than Han Shoror's avatar. 200 years later, this avatar was no longer the half-finished product that was created using spatial energy. Its face was flawless, without a single crack in the middle. Back then, Han Shoror couldn't fuse the two energies together. Because his main body needed to use the mystical yin energy to temper his body in the pandemonium, he couldn't get intimate with any of his women. After 200 years, Han Shoror finally couldn't hold it in any longer. He used this avatar to have intercourse with Rose, who didn't reject him at all. Unexpectedly, he discovered that the two avatars showed signs of fusing when they intercourse using the yin and yang intercourse technique of demonic arts. After a long period of intercourse with Tanai and the other women, Han Shoror finally succeeded in fusing the two avatars together 30 years ago, becoming an anomaly in this universe. The All-Mother's expression changed slightly. She stared at the new Han Shoror and her eyes lit up. She exclaimed, not bad at all. His body is almost the same as mine. After fusing the 12 energies, he can rival my body from 50 billion years ago. That's great, I can fuse with this body of yours. That way, I'll be stronger than I was at my peak. Han Hao, attack! Shouted Han Shoror. His main body and avatar charged at the All-Mother together. Han Hao, who was connected to his mind, moved his white bone throne and the 7 bone spurs on his back shot out. The energy of despair, fear, violence, bloodlust, and endless hatred were released from the little skull Han Hao. Together with Han Shoror's 2 bodies, they charged at the All-Mother. The 7 bone spurs on his back changed direction midway and stabbed at the light enveloping the 11 overgods. Han Shoror's main body and avatar, as well as the little skull, unleashed their full power in an instant. Han Shoror held the cauldron of myriad demon in his hand. 100,000 demon generals flew out of the cauldron of myriad demon. The light from the 13 energies on his avatar and the negative energy from the bone spur in Han Hao's hand converged into one. If it was any other quintessence over God, they would definitely die in the face of these 3 powers. The All-Mother's expression was solemn. A strange light flashed in her eyes, and her body suddenly shrunk into a ball. The shattered eggshell reassembled itself into a giant egg that wrapped around the All-Mother. Crack, crack, crack. Crack, crack, crack. Loud noises came from the top of the egg. It was unknown what material the egg was made of, but colorful light flowed on it like flowing water. It actually nullified most of the power from Han Shoror and his father, especially the power from Han Shoror's avatar. It didn't seem to have much effect on the egg. Only the demonic arts from Han Shoror's avatar and the negative energy from the universe released by the little skull could cause the egg to make loud noises and shake. Don't stop, Han Hao! Shouted Han Shoror. The thousands of demon generals in the cauldron of myriad demon gathered together and slowly grew into a terrifying fist that slammed into the giant egg. This strike was the combined power of Han Shoror's avatar and all the demon generals in the cauldron of myriad demon. It was Han Shoror's limit. When the fist landed, the giant egg finally cracked with a crisp sound. Before Han Shoror could launch a second strike, the shattered eggshell once again attached itself to the All-Mother's body. The luster on her skin dimmed a little. She hurriedly retreated a long distance before she finally said with a cold look in her eyes, "You're courting death." With that, the All-Mother made a strange gesture with both hands. A new quintessence vessel suddenly appeared out of thin air. As soon as the quintessence vessel appeared, a dark light burst out of it. Not only was it larger than the other 12 quintessence vessels, but its aura was also longer and more endless. Not only did it carry the aura of the All-Mother, but it also carried a trace of Han Shoror's evil aura. As soon as the quintessence vessel appeared, it instantly crossed the distance between them and latched onto the little skull Han Hao's head. The expression in the little skull Han Hao's eyes immediately became dull as he stared blankly at the All-Mother. The 7 bone spurs that were shooting at the other quintessence over gods suddenly froze in the void. "My child, you are my true child, my only child." The All-Mother's eyes were filled with a gentle light as she looked at the little skull Han Hao lovingly. She smiled and said, "Your father wants to kill me, your mother. As our son, are you going to watch your father kill your mother?" "No. The little skull was stunned for a moment, and he pointed the bone spur in his hand at Han Shoror. What the hell is going on? Han Shoror was shocked. He looked at the little skull Han Hao in disbelief, and then at the All-Mother. He felt like he was about to break down. The All-Mother was full of smiles. She first said to the little skull, "Good child." Then, she smiled at Han Shoror and said, "Do you think he can really grow to this stage with just your bloodline and your incomplete memories of demonic arts?" Hehe, Han Shoror, oh Han Shoror, ever since this child obtained the gravestone, his body has started to have a part of my blood and brand. It's just that you and he don't know it. Without my blood and spiritual brand, how could he improve so quickly? How could he be on par with you? How could he cultivate a new quintessence? Therefore, it's not an exaggeration to say that he is our child. As his father, it's naturally impossible for you to ask him to kill me. Hearing this, Han Shoror was shocked. He finally understood why the little skull could improve so quickly, why he could form a new quintessence, why his quintessence did not need the support of the power of faith, and why it was different from Nestet and the others. It turned out that a long time ago, the All-Mother had planted a seed in Han Hao's body, a seed that could allow him to mutate and grow stronger. What did you do to him? He's obviously not who he used to be, Han Shoror roared. He looked at the little skull who was staring blankly at him with the bone spur in her hand. He felt a pain in his heart. Don't worry. You will die, but he won't. In this universe, he will be the only family I have in my long life. He is my real child. Althea was right. I've always treated them as slaves. They don't deserve to be my children. They don't have my blood in them, nor do they have my imprint. Without your blood and the memories of your world, how could my child have become so powerful? Don't worry, this child of ours will be the only master of this universe in the future. After I obtain the power of Althea and the others, I'll go to your universe and take it for myself. The All-Mother suddenly laughed. Ha ha ha, I have to thank you, Han Shoror. If it weren't for your blood and the memories of your world, how could my child become so powerful? After laughing, the All-Mother suddenly shouted, Han Hao, kill your father, and this universe will be yours. Under the All-Mother's command, the little skull, Han Hao, no longer recognized Han Shoror. He raised his bone spur and charged at Han Shoror mercilessly. At the same time, the All-Mother also made a move. She continued to collect the 12 quintessences into the quintessences container while blocking Han Shoror's path. Even though her power had been severely damaged, it was not something that Han Shoror could fight against. She easily forced Han Shoror to hide. Han Hao, wake up. Wake up. I am your father. Your only father. Han Shoror's avatar shouted. His main body was also howling, trying to awaken the little skull's consciousness so that he could understand what was happening. Han Shoror could not bear to hurt the little skull, so he kept dodging. The avatar was cut by the bone spur and the negative energy of the universe. On the other side, Han Shoror's avatar was being attacked by the All-Mother. He was constantly being attacked by the All-Mother's power of the universe. Han Shoror's arm, chest, abdomen, and waist were all injured. Even the invincible Omen body could not withstand the All-Mother's attacks. Blood flowed uncontrollably. Han Shoror could only continue to burn the divine soul in the cauldron of myriad demon to form layers of protective shields to block the All-Mother's fatal attacks. Accept your fate. I've been plotting against you ever since I learned of your existence. The reason you're still alive is not because of Fernando or Orseha, but because I need you to be strong enough. Only when you're strong enough can our son continue to improve, and only then can I obtain more power from you. After obtaining the power from both of your bodies, I can use your method to break through the barriers between the two universes and do whatever I want in the universe where your soul resides. You must know that all of this has already been predestined, and you will never be able to change it. The All-Mother, who was inflicting more and more injuries on Han Shoror's body, said with a gentle smile. Orseha, the goddess of destiny, watched helplessly as the situation unfolded. Her power came from the All-Mother. Even if she joined in, she would not be able to affect the All-Mother in the slightest. Instead, she would only increase the All-Mother's power. At this rate, everyone who came to Eternia would be wiped out by the All-Mother in one fell swoop. The All-Mother, who had calculated everything, would not allow anyone to leave this place. Neither Orsehar nor Han Shoror had taken Han Hao into account. Therefore, they could only keep losing. On the other side, Han Shoror's avatar that was constantly dodging had its heart and lungs pierced by the bone spear in Little Skull's hand. The Little Skull pulled out the bone spear and was about to stab the head of Han Shoror's avatar. Han Hao, wake up. Wake up. Have you forgotten? Back when we were in the Profound Continent Academy, you stood up for me, did chores for me, taught Lisa a lesson for me, taught me a lesson. For the first time, panic appeared on Han Shoror's face. He was unable to kill Han Hao and the situation was getting more and more unfavorable for him. Perhaps it was because of Han Shoror's heart-wrenching cry, but Little Skull was stunned for a moment before he suddenly hugged his head and cried bitterly. It was as though there were thousands of sharp knives spinning in his head. His eyes alternated between confusion and clarity, constantly changing. When the All-Mother saw the state Han Hao was in, her expression changed slightly. She did not expect that Little Skull would be able to break free from the mental imprint she had left on him many years ago. She planned to exert more strength to control Han Hao. It was at this moment that Han Shoror's avatar attacked her like a madman. The 100,000 demon generals of the Cauldron of Myriad Demon flew out and fused with the energy in Han Shoror's body at all costs, biting at the All-Mother with all their might. Ah! Han Hao clutched his head and screamed, I only have a father, not a mother. As soon as he finished those words, he stabbed a bone spear into a quintessence container beside him. With a loud explosion, the quintessence container exploded. The other 7 bone spears that had been quietly hovering in the air moved at the same time, shattering the defensive circle above the 11 quintessence over gods. No! The Mother Goddess of Creation finally cried out in alarm and let out an uncontrollable scream of panic. The Goddess of Destiny, Orsehar, who had been waiting for an opportunity, finally found it. In an instant, she twisted the 11 thick lines of the Mirror of Destiny, and the Mirror of Destiny exploded in an instant. As soon as the Mirror of Destiny exploded, the bodies and souls of the 10 overgods, excluding the overgod of space and Fernando, were instantly reduced to ashes. 10 crisp sounds rang out, and the 10 quintessence exploded one after another. The All-Mother, who was attacking Han Shoror's avatar in a frenzy, heard 10 loud explosions in a row. With each explosion, the All-Mother's face paled a little. When the last explosion rang out, she staggered, as if she had run out of energy. Han Hao, let's work together and kill this bitch. Han Hao yelled. On the other side, Han Hao's eyes regained clarity. He joined forces with Han Shoror's avatar and bombarded the All-Mother's body with great force. The All-Mother was heavily injured. On the other side, the overgod of space, Fernando, who had luckily escaped death after Han Hao destroyed his quintessence vessel, stood together with the Goddess of Destiny. They watched in horror as Han Shoror and his father attacked the All-Mother. They watched as their attacks landed on the All-Mother, riddled her body with holes, and her life aura slowly dissipating. All of a sudden, the Cauldron of Myriad Demon in Han Shoror's hand descended and forcibly sucked the creator deities into it. Using the quintessences and divine souls of the 10 quintessence overgods before their deaths, as well as the power of the 100,000 demon generals in the Cauldron of Myriad Demon, the All-Mother was temporarily trapped in the Cauldron of Myriad Demon. Han Shoror grabbed the Cauldron of Myriad Demon and shouted, Fernando, open the passage to the Pandemonium. I want to use the Pandemonium to refine her to death. Fernando was shocked. He immediately tore open a rift in space and let Han Shoror and his son leave first. He followed the Goddess of Destiny, Orsehar, to the Pandemonium. As soon as they left, the Sky City, perhaps having lost the support of the All-Mother's energy, exploded violently in the vast sea of stars, turning into cosmic dust in just a few moments. The Ninth Realm mystical yin formation was reactivated in the Pandemonium. This time, the source of energy was Han Shoror's body. Using the quintessence and divine souls of the 10 quintessence overgods, the 100,000 demon generals in the Cauldron of Myriad Demon, and the mystical yin energy that his main body had accumulated over the years, Han Shoror began refining the All-Mother within the Cauldron of Myriad Demon. Time flew and 100 years passed in the blink of an eye. With the overgod of space, the Goddess of Destiny, and Han Hao working together to protect him, Han Shoror spent 100 years refining all of the All-Mother's consciousness. While refining the All-Mother's consciousness, Han Shuo's avatar was slowly absorbing the refined energy from the All-Mother through the cauldron of myriad demon. By the time the All-Mother's energy was gone, Han Shuo's avatar had become incredibly powerful. Han Shuo finally walked out of Tanai. His gaze swept across Fernando, Orseha, Gilbert, Emily, the 5 elite zombies, Andrina, Phoebe, Warsis, and the others. He smiled and said, "She has completely vanished. From now on, there will be no more ruler in this universe. From now on, you are the new ruler," Orseha said softly with a faint smile. "I'm sorry. I misunderstood you. I thought you were with the other 10. Han Shuo looked at Orseha and sincerely apologized. Orseha smiled and shook her head. She gently said, "You don't have to apologize. I've been waiting for this opportunity. I've done many things that I shouldn't have done in order to achieve this goal. But fortunately, you succeeded. You didn't disappoint me. You aren't another All-Mother. You wouldn't do such a heartless thing. Han Shuo, when will you open the portal for me? I want to go out for a walk." The overgod of space, Fernando, put on a rare smile and said to Han Shuo, "In another 100 years, when my main body has absorbed some of the energy in this universe and ascended to the exalted Demon Lord realm, I will open the portal for you," Han Shuo said smilingly. "I also want to go out and take a look," Han Shuo said. Orseha chuckled and glanced at Fernando. She said softly, "Let's go. Let's not disturb him." "Father, you've finally come out." The little skull, Han Hao, looked at Han Shuo with a natural smile on his face. Han Shuo patted his son's head and did not say anything. The father-son relationship between the two needed no words to describe. His eyes swept across Phoebe, Fanny, Emily, Lisa, Donna, Sophie, Jasper, Rose, and the other girls. Han Shuo's expression was ambiguous. He said, "I know that all of you want children for a long, long time. From now on, I'll give you children. I'll give you as many as you want." The girls blushed, but they were overjoyed. End of book. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.